Black and White by Liu Jiming, translated by Chen Gang, Part 3. Volume 1. Chapter 1. 1. Lu Jia. When Gu Zheng heard the news of her brother Zhong Tianyi's death, she had just taken on a legal aid case. Her client was Lu Jia, the plaintiff in the case, and the defendant was her husband. Due to his constant harassment, Lu Jia had developed mild depression and was emotionally unstable. Gu Zheng spent more time and effort comforting Lu Jia than actually practicing law. She felt more like a psychoanalyst than a lawyer. She had taken a course on Freud's psychoanalysis in college, never expecting it to come in handy now. The Women's and Children's Rights Protection Center of the Provincial Women's Federation assigned Lu Jia's case. The law firm's legal aid office operated on a rotation system, with each lawyer taking turns on duty, and it happened to be Gu Zheng's turn when Lu Jia walked in. According to the rules, the duty lawyer only needed to document the case details before the firm's leadership would assign an attorney to represent the client. However, after hearing Lu Jia's story, Gu Zheng volunteered to take on the case before the firm made any arrangements. Her decision surprised not only the firm's director, Huang Dupeng, but also her close colleague, the salaried lawyer Ling Shui. Legal aid cases were unpaid. The firm could only provide a small allowance at best. No lawyer would willingly take on such cases unless they were assigned or had no other work. The truth was, Gu Zheng herself didn't quite understand why she had volunteered. That morning, Gu Zheng had just started her day when the receptionist intern, Xiao Kong, walked into her office, followed by a young woman. Usually, clients seeking legal consultation or wanting to discuss representation had to be announced by the receptionist, who could only bring them in with the lawyer's approval. Why did Xiao Kong bring someone in directly? Gu Zheng frowned, slightly annoyed at the intern's disregard for protocol. But before she could say anything, Xiao Kong handed her a piece of paper. "Lawyer Gu, the Provincial Women's Federation assigned us a legal aid case. Please take a look." Gu Zheng took the paper and saw a notice from the Women's and Children's Rights Protection Center. After graduating from Dongjiang University's law department, Gu Zheng worked at the Protection Center for several years. Although the experience was unpleasant, it was still her old workplace. Her eyes scanned the line on the notice. Type of legal aid, private prosecution for domestic abuse. Her attitude softened. "All right, I understand. You can go now," she said, nodding at Xiao Kong before turning her attention to the young woman. "You must be Lu Jia?" "Yes." The young woman's tone was blunt, and she even asked, "Are you the boss or the lawyer?" Lu Jia's lack of politeness surprised Gu Zheng. As a lawyer, she rarely encountered clients who spoke to her this way. Taken aback, she examined the young woman. Lu Jia was about 25 or 26, with a model's figure, around 1.7 meters tall. Her skin was pale, perhaps artificially from makeup, giving it an almost unnatural glow, like light reflecting off her face. Nonetheless, she was stunningly beautiful. Big eyes, long lashes, a high nose bridge, and coffee-colored lipstick that added a touch of sensuality. She looked like a cover girl from a trendy magazine like Jian or Reader's Digest. Her designer clothes radiated an intimidating modern glamour that made Gu Zheng feel outdated. However, Lu Jia's flawless face was marred by a noticeable scar on her left cheek. The crescent-shaped wound stretched from her brow to her cheek, resembling a centipede. The scab was still fresh, making it particularly prominent and disrupting the harmony of her otherwise perfect face. Realizing where Gu Zheng's eyes had landed, Lu Jia turned her face slightly to show her unscarred side. She continued in the same brusque tone. "Who will you assign to handle my case?" "Please have a seat," Gu Zheng replied without taking offense. She walked to the water dispenser in the corner of her office, filled a paper cup halfway, and handed it to Lu Jia. Lu Jia hesitated before taking the cup and sat in the chair before Gu Zheng's desk. Gu Zheng returned to her seat behind the desk, turned on the computer, and said as kindly as possible, "Lu Jia, please talk about your case in detail now." At first, Lu Jia was hesitant and evasive and spoke very slowly. Gradually, she became more fluent. While listening, Gu Zheng recorded it on the computer. At the same time, the outline of the case became clear in her mind. Liu Jia was from this city. After graduating from middle school, she was admitted to the fashion design department of the Vocational and Technical College. It was a 2-year program. Liu Jia was beautiful and had a good figure, so she was selected to the college's model performance team shortly after entering the school. When she was about to graduate in her 2nd year, a clothing factory from another place came to the school to recruit people. Liu Jia was initially looked at, but she thought it was too far from home, and the factory's salary was too low, so she didn't go. Not long after, Liu Jia saw an advertisement in the evening paper for the famous entertainment enterprise Chuyun Group in the province to recruit public relations ladies, so she wanted to try it. During that time, a TV series called Public Relations Miss was being broadcast on TV. Liu Jia and her classmates followed the drama every day. The public relations ladies in the drama were always going in and out of big hotels and high-end office buildings. They were in contact with upper-class elites such as chairmen, general managers, and government officials, and they were all very envious. After Liu Jia had registered, she soon received a notice for an interview. The result was also smooth. Liu Jia was among the 5 girls recruited by the Chuyun Group from the vocational college. Liu Jia became a public relations lady as she wished. She worked very well in the public relations department of the Chuyun Group's entertainment city and was appreciated by the general manager. She was promoted to public relations department manager in less than 2 years. The general manager was a woman, very beautiful but too serious. She never smiled, always had a straight face. Besides work, she never talked about other things in front of her subordinates. But she was very capable and ran Chuyun Entertainment City very successfully. Many prominent figures in Dajiang City regarded consuming at the entertainment city as a symbol of their status. However, shortly after Liu Jia was promoted to Public Relations Department Manager, something happened to the Chuyun Group. The boss was arrested, and the entertainment city was closed. Liu Jia and a group of public relations ladies scattered like birds and beasts in the Public Relations Department. After leaving Chuyun Entertainment City, Liu Jia quickly found a new job through introductions, a graphic model for Dajiang Weekly. Dajiang Weekly was an entertainment weekly hosted by the Dajiang Daily, which contracted most of the advertisements of the Dajiang Daily. The person who introduced Liu Jia to Dajiang Weekly was Chen Gang, the director of the advertising department of Dajiang Daily. Liu Jia and Chen Gang met at Chuyun Entertainment City. Chen Gang was a regular at the entertainment city, bringing customers to spend money every few days. He would order Liu Jia and sing the song New Mandarin Duck Butterfly Dream with her each time. Chen Gang was out of tune, and he always ran off key. Chen Gang was tall and burly and had a bit of a man's style, but he was a bit vulgar. Not to mention wearing necklaces and jewelry all over his neck and wrists. He always swore when he spoke, and he liked to use his hands and feet when he was drunk. Several ladies in the public relations department were a little afraid of him, but he was very polite to Liu Jia. Not only did he not use his hands, but he rarely used dirty words when talking to her, so Liu Jia didn't have a bad impression of him. At that time, she only thought that Chen Gang liked to sing, and she didn't think about anything else. Liu Jia didn't expect that not long after she went to work at Dajiang Weekly, Chen Gang would formally propose to her, and it was in front of a large group of colleagues she had just met. Chen Gang held a bouquet of bright roses, knelt on one knee, looked up at her, and said, "Liu Jia, I fell in love with you at first sight when I saw you at Chuyun." Chen Gang was in his early 40s, over 10 years older than Liu Jia. But at that moment, facing Chen Gang's sincere eyes, she couldn't refuse. Soon, Liu Jia moved in with Chen Gang and got married. But 2 years later, half a year ago, Chen Gang suddenly proposed to divorce Liu Jia. At that time, I was already 2 months pregnant. I went back home from Dajiang Weekly to wait for the delivery, but Chen Gang forced me to go to the hospital for an abortion. I didn't agree, so Chen Gang punched and kicked me. Once he even smashed my face with his mobile phone. Whenever Chen Gang got drunk, he would burn me with cigarette butts. Over the past half a year, my whole body has been almost burned all over, Liu Jia said here. sobbing uncontrollably. Suddenly, she jumped up from her seat nervously. Ignoring the fact that the office door was ajar, she lifted her clothes for Gu Zheng to see. Her body was indeed covered with cigarette butt marks, scattered like heavenly Nyangzis scattering flowers. Gu Zheng quickly covered Liu Jia's clothes for her. To stabilize her emotions, she took the paper cup she had placed on the desk, refilled a cup of water, and handed it back to her. Seeing Liu Jia's trembling hands holding the paper cup and those terrified eyes, she couldn't help but feel a trace of pity and sympathy. The next day, Gu Zheng received the news of her brother Zhang Tianyi's death, too. Blood is thicker than water. Gu Zheng had felt uneasy ever since receiving Zhang Tianyi's registered mail half a year ago. In Suhdu, Zhang Tianyi's registered letter was a power of attorney, entrusting Gu Zheng to fully handle his company, debts, and real estate in his name. The thin sheet of 4A printed paper, with just a few lines of words, shocked Gu Zheng, especially when she saw one of the entrusted items, transferring the property rights of the duplex apartment in the Paris garden to Meng Fei's name. The unease in her heart grew even stronger. Why would her brother want to dispose of all his property and even transfer the property rights of the house he currently lived in to Meng Fei? Weren't they husband and wife? A family? What did he mean by this? Could it be? An ominous thought popped into Gu Zheng's head. She quickly took out her phone to call her brother. But after dialing several times, she only heard the message. "The number you dialed is switched off. Please try again later." She also wanted to call Meng Fei, but she couldn't find the phone number at all. Gu Zheng usually only talked to her brother occasionally. She had never called Meng Fei. She couldn't warm up to this sister-in-law who was 2 years younger than her. In her mind, she still regarded Kestrel as her sister-in-law. This even affected her relationship with her brother. She finally found Meng Fei's phone number. It had been recorded in a small notebook a long time ago, and she had forgotten about it. But after dialing, there was no answer, and each time it rang for a while before being hung up. It was clear that Meng Fei didn't want to answer her call. What had happened between her brother and Meng Fei? What was wrong with her brother? A series of questions popped up like soap bubbles. Gu Zheng remembered that she had received a call from her brother not long ago. She was on a business trip outside then, and her brother spoke haltingly. She was a little impatient and hung up the phone after a few words. Looking back now, her brother had something important to tell her that time. Not long after returning from her business trip, Gu Zheng received the registered mail sent by her brother. During that time, a case she was handling was about to go to trial, and she was so busy that she didn't have time to deal with other things. So, she put her brother's matter aside, and this delay lasted for half a year until she suddenly received a telegram from Kestrel. The telegram was short. "Your brother has released his life. Come quickly to take care of the aftermath." Releasing one's life was a Redstone Valley dialect meaning passed away. Shock, grief, and doubt instantly shot at Gu Zheng like arrows, and her mind was in complete chaos. What disease did her brother have? Why would he die at Kestrel's place? They had been divorced for many years. Hadn't they lost contact a long time ago? But she didn't have time to think more, put down the work at hand, and went to the bus station that afternoon, catching the last long-distance bus to Redstone Valley. It took 5 or 6 hours to get from Dajiang to Redstone Valley. When Gu Zheng arrived in Redstone Valley, it was already 10 o'clock at night. It wasn't Gu Zheng's first time in Redstone Valley. Each time she came secretly, hiding it from her brother. It wasn't that she intentionally wanted to hide it from her brother, but that Kestrel didn't want her brother to know that his son, Xiao Xiao, was still alive. At first, Gu Zheng didn't understand why Kestrel did this, but she slowly felt that Kestrel wasn't doing this to retaliate against her brother for abandoning her and their son, but out of self-esteem. If her brother knew that Xiao Xiao was alive, he would definitely give money to help them, mother and son, and she didn't want that. "We're divorced. He goes his way, and I walk my own path." Kestrel was stubborn and had a hardiness unique to mountain people, unlike those women who cried and wailed after being abandoned by their husbands. She wanted to raise her son alone. This was precisely why Gu Zheng respected and was close to Kestrel from the bottom of her heart. But Gu Zheng sometimes wondered if Kestrel didn't know that doing this was a crueler revenge against her brother. But in the end, perhaps because they were both women, or perhaps for some other reason, her emotional balance unknowingly tilted towards Kestrel's side, helping Kestrel conceal the truth that her nephew Xiao Xiao was still alive. However, Gu Zheng never expected that Kestrel would conceal the news of her brother's being in Redstone Valley from her this time. What exactly was going on? At 10 o'clock at night, there wasn't a single pedestrian on the street in the mountain town. The empty cement road was covered with garbage left over from the day. The wind blew a thick layer of dust along the road surface, and some scattered scraps of paper were blown into the air, spinning around and making a rustling sound. The dim streetlights attracted countless mosquitoes and flies, a dark mass that blocked the light. In early spring, the temperature at night was still a bit chilly. Gu Zheng was wearing a violet windbreaker with a hood and a denim travel bag slung across her shoulder, walking towards the town. The dim streetlights made her shadow very long, like a giant in a cartoon. Before she had walked far, she heard a long, drawn-out sound of a swona, mournful and sad. Gu Zheng had been to Redstone Valley several times and knew a little about the customs of the mountain area. This area was at the junction of Baling and Chuzhu. After an elderly person passed away, Taoist priests would perform rituals to release the souls of the dead, and singers would sing funeral songs. They would have to hire swona players. Whenever she heard such a mournful swona sound, she knew someone had passed away in someone's home. Gu Zheng stopped and listened carefully. The swona sound was coming from the direction of Xiao Xiao restaurant. She knew what this meant and couldn't help but quicken her pace. Turning past a crossroads and walking a few more steps, she arrived at Xiao Xiao restaurant. As soon as Gu Zheng walked into the familiar restaurant, she saw that the original restaurant had been turned into a mourning hall. The red lanterns on both sides of the door had been replaced with white ones, and the room was filled with white memorial banners. In the center of the hall, there was a black coffin. Kestrel and her nephew Xiao Xiao wore mourning clothes and guarded the coffin. Although it was very late, some people were still dressed in local attire, burning incense and kowtowing in front of the coffin. The cashier, Xiao Hong, and several waiters from the restaurant were busy receiving people who came to pay their respects. As soon as Gu Zheng walked in, Xiao Hong saw her. Then Kestrel and Xiao Xiao also saw her. A few people came up to her together. Before she could speak, Kestrel and Xiao Xiao's eyes turned red. Gu Zheng tried to control herself. She felt that her hands were being held tightly by Kestrel and Xiao Xiao, as if the mother and son were pulling her to the front of the coffin. The tall coffin lay across the hall's center like a beast. It probably had just been painted, as it gave off a pungent burning smell. When she realized that her brother was lying inside, her nose suddenly felt sore, her legs felt weak, and she could barely move. At this time, Kestrel instructed the male waiter next to her in a hoarse voice, "Open the coffin lid and let his aunt take a look." Several waiters hurried to lift the coffin lid, but Gu Zheng stopped them before they had lifted it halfway. She didn't dare to see her brother's dead appearance, just like she didn't want to admit that her brother was dead all the way here. This feeling was the same as when she heard the news of her mother's drowning as a child, and she didn't want to admit it. It was as if, as long as she didn't see her brother's dead appearance, her brother would still be alive. When Gu Zheng realized this, her heart was suddenly seized by the grief of losing a loved one. Before, she hadn't realized this. Her body suddenly trembled, so much so that she had to reach out and hold on to Kestrel and Xiao Xiao beside her. They also noticed it and reached out to support her. The three of them hugged each other tightly like a family. Then, people in the hall heard a burst of suppressed crying. The next morning, as the last string of firecrackers and the Sowona sound disappeared, Gu Zheng followed the funeral procession from the rugged mountain roads of Redstone Valley back to Xiao Xiao restaurant. At this time, the fellow villagers who had come to the funeral had gradually left, and the restaurant was empty, leaving only Gu Zheng, Kestrel, and Xiao Xiao. In the center of the hall where the coffin had been placed, There was now a portrait of Zong Tianyi. Incense was swirling in front of the frame, and the candles flickered. Gu Zheng gazed at Zong Tianyi's portrait and felt that her brother's expression looked very peaceful. She couldn't help but be curious about what it was that made her brother leave his wife Meng Fei and his daughter An and come to his former wife Kestrel and his son Xiao Xiao, whom he hadn't contacted for many years, spend the last part of his life and choose to be buried here. What had he thought about before his death? And what had he said? Kestrel seemed to guess Gu Zheng's thoughts. Not long ago, when your brother could still walk, he leaned on a cane behind my back and went to the reservoir alone again. When he came back, he told me that he had a dream the night before in which he saw his father, who was also your father, fall into the reservoir alone, constantly asking him for help. Tianyi, come and save me. Kestrel said here, as if choked by something, stopped for a moment before saying, Before your brother left, he asked me to bury him by the reservoir to accompany your father. Hearing the word father, Gu Zheng felt very unfamiliar. Since coming into this world, she had never seen her biological father. Therefore, the term father had always been a blank to her, like she had once written in a poem an unfillable blank, including the legendary grandfather and grandmother, who were all distant legends. This caused her to lack the perception and attachment to family and relatives that ordinary girls had, and her personality was a bit withdrawn and indifferent. It was the same with her mother. In Gu Zheng's memory, the only thing her mother left her was that Gu Zheng. At this moment, listening to the secret of Zong Tianyi's choice to be buried in Redstone Valley, she suddenly felt that she didn't understand her brother too well. Over the years, she rarely took the initiative to communicate with her brother. She rarely went to their house after her brother married Meng Fei and had a child. She had always regarded Kestrel as her sister-in-law and Xiao Xiao as her nephew, but she could never warm up to Meng Fei and An. Her withdrawn and stubborn personality could be seen from this. Now, when Gu Zheng realized that Zong Tianyi had been searching for their father's whereabouts, whom they had not met for so many years, she suddenly felt a trace of guilt towards her brother. It must have been hard for you to care for my brother all along. Gu Zheng looked at Kestrel and said from the bottom of her heart, due to handling the funeral affairs, Kestrel had barely closed her eyes these past 2 days and looked very haggard. A strand of hair drooped down her forehead, revealing a few conspicuous white hairs, making her look a bit older. Kestrel had had a hard time all these years. To treat Xiao Xiao's illness and provide for his schooling, she ran a restaurant by herself, enduring hardships, acting as both a mother and a father. She was just over 40 years old, but her hair was white, like an old woman's. Looking at the few conspicuous wrinkles on Kestrel's forehead, Gu Zheng felt a surge of emotion that only relatives could have. Look at you! We're all family! What are you saying these things for? Kestrel covered up and stretched out her hand to rub her eyes, stammering, Before your brother left, he asked me to give you the laptop he brought and also said to let you take a good look at a book on the computer. I'll go get it for you. After saying that, she went upstairs. Only Gu Zheng and Xiao Xiao were left in the hall. Xiao Xiao was almost as tall as Gu Zheng. His face looked a bit like Kestrel's, like a handsome girl's. Those blue eyes looked very much like Zong Tianyi's, and they also had a hint of melancholy. At this moment, not much sadness could be seen on this face. For this father who had suddenly appeared and then passed away, this teenager clearly lacked sufficient psychological and emotional preparation and was a bit ignorant and dazed. For him, father was also a strange term. In his heart, his aunt Gu Zheng made him feel closer and more real than his father. Therefore, after returning from the burial on the mountain, he had been holding Gu Zheng's arm and hadn't let go. Liang Tian, the college entrance exam is coming soon. How confident are you that you can be admitted to Dongjiang University? Gu Zheng deliberately changed to a more relaxed topic to get rid of the oppressive atmosphere. Since Xiao Xiao started school, she had followed Kestrel's request and didn't call him Xiao Xiao, but Liang Tian instead. Liang Tian didn't seem to expect Gu Zheng to ask this question. After thinking for a while, he said, like a student answering a teacher's question, 80% sure. No, 90%. Oh, that confident? Gu Zheng happily stroked Liang Tian's slightly messy hair. Over the years, she was most concerned about Liang Tian's academic performance whenever she came to Redstone Valley to visit Kestrel and her nephew. After Liang Tian started high school, he always ranked at the top of his class in every exam. He told her on the phone not long ago that he was preparing to apply to Dongjiang University. Gu Zheng asked him why he wanted to apply to Dongda, and Liang Tian replied that his aunt was a graduate of Dongda, so he wanted to go to Dongda too. Hearing this sentence, a warm current welled up in her heart. Later, she also tried to find a set of college entrance examination mock test papers from Dongda High School and sent them to Liang Tian. At this moment, seeing the confident expression on Liang Tian's face, Gu Zheng felt relief for Kestrel and her brother Zhong Tianyi. She looked at the teenager whose eyes closely resembled her brother's, and a blood-is-thicker-than-water affection arose in her heart. 3. Extraneous issues. Initially, Liu Jia's case was filed as a divorce suit involving both property division and allegations of domestic violence and personal injury. Therefore, when Gu Zheng submitted the complaint to the court, she added a claim seeking to hold the defendant civilly liable for the personal injury inflicted upon the plaintiff. Having worked at the Women and Children's Rights Protection Center of the Provincial Women's Federation, Gu Zheng was quite familiar with divorce-related disputes. She had even personally participated in the mediation of several divorce cases. The most thorny and complicated issue in a divorce was property division, followed by the issue of child custody. According to Chinese law, women in marriage are vulnerable parties deserving protection. Therefore, this factor is usually considered when determining the division of marital property. The extent of this consideration depends on the proportion of responsibility each party bears for the breakdown of the marriage relationship. Liu Jia suffered repeated domestic violence from her husband, Qian Gang, resulting in a miscarriage and obvious physical harm. Thus, Qian Gang should bear the primary responsibility for breaking the marital relationship. Based on this determination of responsibility, Gu Zheng filed a claim on behalf of Liu Jia for half of the marital property. Based on past experience, the husband, who usually controlled the family finances, often resorted to hiding or concealing assets to avoid property division. Therefore, as soon as Liu Jia's case was filed, Gu Zheng applied to the bank to investigate Chen Gang's bank accounts using her attorney's privileges. Surprisingly, the total funds in the 3 accounts under Qian Gang's name were less than 100,000 yuan. As the advertising director of the Dajiang Daily, Qian Gang's annual salary was more than that. Therefore, it was highly likely that Chen Gang had concealed or transferred assets under his name. Gu Zheng invited Liu Jia to the law firm again. 100,000 yuan? How is that possible? Liu Jia exclaimed upon hearing the amount of money in Chen Gang's bank accounts from Gu Zheng. The gold and silver jewelry he has is worth more than that. Perhaps due to the recent miscarriage, or out of anger, Liu Jia's face was pale and devoid of color. Gu Zheng certainly believed Liu Jia's words. She had heard similar stories more than once before, so she was not surprised. Think carefully. Where would your husband transfer the money to? She patiently reminded. For example, his family. Don't call him your husband anymore, Liu Jia interrupted Gu Zheng, furrowing her heavily drawn eyebrows and suddenly raising her voice. Gu Zheng had intended to say, "Aren't you officially divorced yet? Legally, before you are officially divorced, you are still married." But seeing the look of utter disgust on Liu Jia's face, she stopped herself. Subsequently, until she left the law firm, Liu Jia did not return to the topic of Qian Gang's family, which Gu Zheng had raised. Gu Zheng asked several more times, but Liu Jia evasively avoided the topic. Gu Zheng vaguely felt that Liu Jia was deliberately concealing something from her. The investigation and evidence gathering of the case were temporarily stalled. Just then, Gu Zheng received a call from the court informing her that the defendant had objected to the plaintiff's eligibility for legal aid. This was the first time Gu Zheng had encountered an objection to the conditions for legal aid. The court had clear regulations regarding the conditions and recipients of legal aid. 1. Criminal suspects who, after the first interrogation by the investigation authority or from the date when compulsory measures are taken, have not hired a lawyer due to financial difficulties. Victims and their legal representatives or close relatives in public prosecution cases who have not entrusted a litigation agent from the date when the case is transferred for review and prosecution due to financial difficulties. 2. Self-prosecutors and their legal representatives in self-prosecution cases who have not entrusted a litigation agent from the date when the People's Court accepts the case due to financial difficulties. 3. In cases where a public prosecutor appears in court for prosecution, if the defendant has not been entrusted with a defender due to financial difficulties or other reasons, the legal aid agency shall provide legal aid when the People's Court designates a defender for the defendant. 4. When the defendant is blind, deaf, mute, or a minor and has not entrusted a defender, or when the defendant may be sentenced to death and has not entrusted a defender, the legal aid agency shall provide legal aid when the People's Court designates a defender for the defendant, without the need to review the defendant's financial situation. Liu Jia's conditions should meet the second clause. In divorce cases, although women are a protected, vulnerable party, Liu Jia's case was assigned by the Rights Protection Center of the Provincial Women's Federation, and it did not explicitly list women as one of the requirements for legal aid. Especially after Gu Zheng saw the evidence provided by the defendant in the district court, which proved that although Liu Jia was currently unemployed and had no fixed income, she owned a property and a Volkswagen Bora car, obviously not meeting the condition of financial difficulties requiring legal aid. Her previous assessment of Liu Jia's case was somewhat shaken. To be cautious, Gu Zheng specifically sought out the presiding judge. The presiding judge was named Liu Jie, also a graduate of the Law School of Dongjiang University and a classmate of Huang Zupeng, the director of Gu Zheng's law firm. He was nominally his senior and had even eaten together with him, so they could be considered acquaintances and usually spoke quite casually. Gu Zheng was led into the judge's office by a judicial assistant. Liu Jie raised his face from a pile of case files and said, "Why did you take on such a case?" Gu Zheng was a little baffled. "What's wrong?" "Have you figured out the real reason why the defendant is divorcing the plaintiff?" Gu Zheng was even more puzzled by Liu Jie's words. She had already written clearly in the complaint submitted to the court about the real reason for Liu Jia and Chen Gang's divorce. Why did Judge Liu say this? But Liu Jie's expression was very serious, not like he was joking. Gu Zheng felt unsure and stammered a little. "Isn't it because of domestic violence and personal injury?" "Take a look at this." Without saying anything else, Liu Jie pulled out a piece of paper from the case file and handed it to Gu Zheng. Gu Zheng took it and read it quickly. When she saw the line, "Plaintiff Liu Jia concealed her prostitution experience before marrying defendant Chen Gang," her mind exploded, and it took her a while to calm down. "This case is not as simple as you understand. The defendant and plaintiff both have complicated backgrounds. I suggest you better not wade into this murky water." Liu Jie's face, which rarely showed any expression, revealed a rare hint of a smile. "Fortunately, the defendant objected to the plaintiff's eligibility for court-assisted legal aid. You can just use this as an excuse to back out." From Liu Jie's words, Gu Zheng heard the senior's concern for his junior, but she couldn't bother to express her gratitude, carefully savoring the meaning of the first half of Liu Jie's sentence. As a judge, Liu Jie would not say things casually, clearly hinting at something. A heavy cloud descended on Gu Zheng's heart. She was not worried about Chen Gang's objection to Liu Jia's eligibility for legal aid. This was not the core element of the case. The key was the issue of prostitution raised in the defendant's reply, which, if true, would significantly disadvantage Liu Jia, who was in an advantageous position in the case. Gu Zheng felt a little surprised by this sudden twist. She suddenly wanted to see Liu Jia as soon as possible, so she said goodbye to Liu Jie and hurriedly left the district court. 4. Jane Eyre Tsafu. Jane Eyre Tsafu was located on South Lake Road, boasting an elegant atmosphere infused with a strong English flavor. The waitresses, dressed in short skirts with green trim and wide-brimmed soft green hats, looked like they had stepped straight out of Jane Eyre, like 19th-century English country girls. It was less than a stop away from Gu Zheng's Junding law firm, and Gu Zheng often came to Jane Eyre Tsafu for small gatherings with colleagues or to discuss matters with clients. Besides liking the name Jane Eyre and the ambiance, it was also convenient. In addition to coffee, it served Western fast food such as steak, sandwiches, and pasta, as well as Chinese-style simple meals like clay pot rice. After finishing her business, she could grab a Western or Chinese meal and conveniently stroll across the street to the Yamao building to indulge her female shopping desires. The newly completed Yamao building was the tallest in Dajiang City to date, with 48 floors. Standing on the gem-shaped rooftop platform, one could overlook South Lake and take in the entire city of Dajiang. Next to the Yamao building was the provincial government, which had moved from Jifang Road 2 years earlier, followed by the Provincial Department of Commerce, the Department of Foreign Trade, the Development and Reform Commission, the Department of Finance. Large and small provincial government units had flocked in, building new office buildings by South Lake, each more impressive and luxurious than the last. Coupled with the residential buildings and communities that had sprung up like mushrooms after rain in recent years, South Lake Road, which was very remote 10 years ago, had become the most prosperous and modern new district in Dajiang City. Gu Zheng and Liu Jia had scheduled to meet at 5 in the afternoon, and Gu Zheng arrived at Jane Eyre Tsafu at 4:30. She chose a booth by the window, from which she had an unobstructed view of the street scene outside through the tall French windows. The setting sun cast the shadow of the Yamao building across the street onto the lawn in front of the cafe, like an impressionist oil painting, further enhancing the tranquility inside the cafe. It wasn't time for dinner yet, and besides Gu Zheng, there were few other customers in the cafe. Wearing a green, wide-brimmed, soft hat, the waitress poured Gu Zheng a glass of soda water and walked away. Gu Zheng took a copy of Victor Hugo's 93 from her bag and opened it before her. After graduating for so many years, Gu Zheng still maintained her love for literature. She liked Hugo's novels in college and had read The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Miserables, but 93 had never had the chance to read. Not long ago, she saw a review online and went to the bookstore to buy a copy and bring it back, but she had been too busy lately to read it. At this moment, she opened the first page of the novel. In the last days of May 1793, a troop of soldiers arrived at the formidable Soudre Forest in Astille. They were one of the battalions led by Santerre from Paris to the Brittany region, heavily damaged in the brutal war, and now less than 300 men remained. After the battles of Argonne, Jemappes, and Valmy, the 1st Battalion of Paris volunteers was reduced from the original 600 men to 27, the 2nd Battalion to only 33, and the 3rd Battalion to 57. This was a period of thrilling battles. A total of 912 men were sent from Paris to the Vendée region. Each battalion was equipped with 3 cannons. The personnel were urgently recruited. On April 25th, with Goyer as Minister of Justice and Bouchot as Minister of War, the Advisory District proposed sending volunteers to the Vendée region. Community Commissioner Luban made a report, and on May 1st, Santerre was ready. 12,000 men, 30 field guns, and an artillery battalion were dispatched. This rapidly formed army changed the proportion of soldiers to junior officers, and the personnel configuration was more reasonable, so it is still regarded as a model. Today, the formation of regular troops is also carried out according to this model. Gu Zheng read this far, and then she uneasily took her eyes off the book and cast them out the window. She didn't know how this conversation with Liu Jia would go next, or what the result would be. And no matter how it went, it would determine the direction of the case. Thinking of this, she felt a little uneasy, just like when she was a new lawyer taking on her first case. Just then, a red hatchback Shanghai Bora drove up and stopped before Jane Eyre Tsafu. A woman opened the car door and stepped out. Although she was wearing sunglasses, Gu Zheng recognized Liu Jia at a glance from her graceful model-like gait. Liu walked into the cafe, looking around for Gu Zheng. Gu Zheng leaned forward from her seat and raised her hand to signal. Liu strode towards her on her long legs. "This place is nice. Whenever I shop at Yamao, I come here for a drink," Liu said, sitting down opposite Gu Zheng, taking off her sunglasses and casually placing a linen-woven handbag on the seat. Judging from Liu tone, she often shopped at Yamao. Gu Zheng never missed a chance to shop and visit cafes during holidays. Like most young urban women, Gu Zheng also loved shopping and food, and Liu with her fashionable style, probably even more so. However, Gu Zheng's mind was not focused on such lifestyle interests. "That Bora is nice. Is it your car?" Gu Zheng subtly shifted the topic to her planned agenda. Did you drive here too?" Liu answered casually. "Oh no, I walked," Gu Zheng said vaguely. "It's less than half an hour from the law firm, a good way to take a walk and lose weight." "You're not fat. By my standards, you're even on the skinny side," Liu said, seriously looking Gu Zheng up and down, speaking expertly. Gu Zheng certainly knew she was not fat at all, but in front of a model like Liu she felt she was still a bit on the plump side. "The color of this car is nice. I like red, too." Gu Zheng returned the conversation to her planned agenda. "How much does it cost?" "It's not expensive, just a little over 100,000 yuan, Liu said nonchalantly, removing a pack of more cigarettes from her handbag while lifting her eyelids to glance at Gu Zheng. "I heard that your lawyers are all very rich. You haven't bought a car yet?" This was not the first time Gu Zheng had heard this question. In the past 2 years, buying a car had become very popular among white-collar workers, and several colleagues younger than her in the law firm had bought vehicles. But could buying a car be equated with a person's economic condition? Just like she was now over 30 and didn't have a boyfriend or get married, it had no direct relationship with age. Therefore, she usually didn't bother to answer whenever someone asked her if she had a boyfriend or was married. But now, she was facing Liu who was not an ordinary conversation partner, and Gu Zheng had to show much more patience than usual when chatting with colleagues and friends. Liu took out a thin, long cigarette from the cigarette case, held it between her equally slender fingers, put it to her lips, and lit it with a delicate lighter that seemed to be made of silver. A wisp of light blue smoke slowly came from her thickly lipsticked lips, forming small smoke rings in the air. From the use of the lighter to the act of smoking, the whole process was done in one smooth motion. Even Gu Zheng, who didn't smoke, thought smoking was elegant. Liu noticed Gu Zheng watching her smoke and pushed the cigarette case before her. "Would you like one?" "Oh, I don't know how." Gu Zheng averted her gaze and her face blushed involuntarily. She found that in front of Liu a few years younger, she seemed tender, unlike a lawyer with several years of practice experience. She was very dissatisfied with herself and restrained her wandering thoughts. Gu Zheng pressed the electric bell on the coffee table, and the waitress with the green, wide-brimmed, soft hat floated over silently like a shadow. "What would you two like to drink? Coffee or tea?" Gu Zheng pushed the drink menu on the coffee table in front of Liu Without looking at it, Liu said, "Cappuccino." Then she looked at Gu Zheng and added, "It's my treat today." Gu Zheng was about to say something, but seeing Liu unquestionable tone, she hesitated and said, "Okay, I'll have a cappuccino too." While waiting for the coffee, Liu took out an oval-shaped small mirror from her handbag and looked at the not completely healed scar on her face, asking, "Gu attorney, you've invited me out so solemnly today. There must be something important, right?" Gu Zheng thought she really was a clever person. After so much build-up, it was time to get to the point. "This morning I went to the court. Your husband, the defendant Chen has objected to your eligibility for legal aid and has also presented relevant evidence to the court." Gu Zheng stopped there, paying attention to the other party's reaction. Unexpectedly, Liu didn't seem surprised. She just asked faintly, "What evidence?" "Chen alleged to the court that you have a 2-bedroom apartment and a car worth more than 100,000 yuan under your name." Gu Zheng said. According to the law, the object of legal aid must be those with economic difficulties and minors. Are you referring to the Bora parked outside? That was given to me by Chen Gang as an engagement gift when we got engaged. Liu Jia put down the small mirror in her hand. And I bought that house on a mortgage, and the loan hasn't been paid off yet. Gu Zheng suddenly interrupted her and asked, "What year did you buy it, before or after you met Chen Gang? How much was the down payment?" Liu Jia was a little surprised by Gu Zheng's series of questions. She was stunned for a moment before answering. In 1999, before I met Chen Gang, the down payment was 130,000 yuan. In 1999, you graduated from vocational college less than 2 years ago. As far as I know, your parents are both laid-off workers. To save money to support your younger brother's college education, they let you go to vocational and technical college, Gu Zheng said, looking at Liu Jia. Where did you get so much money? Whether it was because of Gu Zheng's gaze or her words, Liu Jia suddenly lowered her head. After a long while, she raised her face and asked coldly, "What exactly are you trying to say?" Gu Zheng hesitated, took a craft paper envelope from her briefcase and pulled out a document. Qian Gong's reply that she had obtained from the court this morning. Liu Jia took it, her gaze sweeping over the one-page reply. Then, Liu Jia's hand, as if burned, threw the reply on the coffee table, her face turning pale. Plaintiff Liu Jia concealed her prostitution experience before marrying defendant Qian Gang. This sentence flashed through Gu Zheng's mind. She suddenly regretted showing the reply to Liu Jia. Chapter 2. 1. Jackdaws Bathing. Not long after, Gu Zheng received a call from Judge Niu Jie of the district court. Liu Jia's case has been withdrawn. Gu Zheng wasn't surprised by this news. After Liu Jia staggered out of Jane Eyre Tsafu that day, she had already anticipated it. Even so, she still asked, why was it withdrawn? Was it Liu Jia's voluntary decision, or did her husband, Qian Gang, put pressure on her? "This is good for you. You don't need to worry about anything else," Niu Jie said impatiently. Gu Zheng seemed to see his greasy, obese face and was speechless for a moment. "Oh, right. You tell Huang Zupeng when he will fulfill his promise to treat. I'm waiting," Niu Jie said on the phone, half seriously. "You have to come too." Gu Zheng hummed absent-mindedly and didn't understand why Huang Zupeng would treat him until Niu Jie hung up. After hanging up on Niu Jie's call, she immediately called Liu Jia but was hung up several times. Liu Jia was deliberately avoiding her, Gu Zheng thought. The weather was getting hotter and hotter. Due to the power shortage, Dajiang City had to start rationing electricity by district, which affected the everyday work and life of many residential areas and administrative units to varying degrees. Units like law firms didn't require every lawyer to go to work and leave work on time like civil servants. Everyone did their own thing as usual, and it was even more so now. After entering July, Gu Zheng stayed in her air-conditioned room almost all day and rarely went downstairs except to buy necessities. Gu Zheng still lived in the house allocated by the Provincial Women's Federation. It was a one-bedroom apartment, only a little more than 40 square meters. Although the area was a bit small and an old house from the 1980s, the quality was relatively poor, and it was on the top floor. It was like being in an oven when it got hot in the summer, and people were almost cooked. However, as a recent college graduate, Gu Zheng was already satisfied with being assigned to such a house. Many of her classmates who had left school with her were still living in collective dormitories. Moreover, there was a bathroom, a kitchen, a living room, and a bedroom, which was almost a luxury for one person to live in. However, Gu Zheng nearly suffered from heat stroke in the first summer after moving in. In the second year, she bought a Chunlan air conditioner early, and although it cost her nearly half a year's salary, she no longer had to be afraid of the heat. After graduating for so many years, Gu Zheng still maintained her introverted personality. Besides colleagues and classmates, she rarely interacted with other people. It was said that such a personality was unsuitable for a lawyer. Gu Zheng's former colleagues at the Provincial Women's Federation thought so. However, she still insisted on resigning from her job at the Rights Protection Committee of the Provincial Women's Federation and becoming a lawyer. Over the years that she had been in the legal profession, Gu Zheng had come into contact with people from all walks of life, but her social circle had not expanded. Usually, if there was nothing to do, she would quietly stay home, read books, or make herself something delicious, living a typical single noble life. In this hot summer, Gu Zheng finally finished reading Hugo's 93. When she closed the book, some sentences in the novel were still flying around in her mind like little birds. The executioner laid him flat on the rocker. His lovely and proud head was stuck in the shameful collar. The executioner gently pulled up his hair and then pressed the spring. The triangular knife started, first sliding slowly, then accelerating, a regrettable sound. At the same time, another sound came. A gunshot echoed the sound of the guillotine. Simordan had just pulled out a gun from his waist. When Gauvain's head rolled into the basket, Simordan shot himself in the chest. Blood flowed from his mouth, and he fell down dead. Gu Zheng smelled a strong smell of blood, as if she saw death flapping its wings, flying over from the horizon from far to near. When death came, it was as simple as a leaf falling from a tree, both cruel and gentle. She felt a little sad, not only because of Gauvain but also because of her brother, who had passed away not long before. From her brother, she thought of her mother. She hadn't thought of her mother in a long time. Since graduating from college, her busy work and life had made her almost forget the deceased and living relatives, including her brother. And now, her brother had crossed from the ranks of living relatives to the ranks of deceased relatives. Crossing this boundary was so simple, like a restricted area line on a basketball court. He finally went to meet his mother. Gu Zheng thought, but she immediately felt that her idea was a little cold, although that was true. That night, Gu Zheng found the guzheng in her trunk. Since breaking 2 strings, she hadn't taken it out, and she had almost forgotten about it. She unwrapped the layers of silk and saw the guzheng lying quietly like a sleeping baby. Without much effort, Gu Zheng repaired the 2 broken strings. She tried it out, and the tone was soft, bright, loose, and clear. She gently stroked the strings, and a melodious guzheng sound rang out. At first it was a bit rusty, but it gradually became smooth, like flowing water. After a piece ended, Gu Zheng remembered that the name of the piece she had played was Jackdaws Bathing, which was the first famous guzheng piece her mother had taught her to play when she was a child. Gu Zheng didn't understand why she was playing such a piece about jackdaws in such hot weather. Was it some kind of revelation from her mother in the dark? 2. Incoming posts. Winter seemed to arrive overnight. One day, people were still wearing colorful autumn clothes, but yesterday, a north wind blew in the second half of the night and hadn't stopped this morning. As soon as Gu Zheng went downstairs, she saw people in the community all wearing thick winter clothes. Only then did she feel a chill on her body, so she turned around and went back to add a wool coat before catching the bus. As Gu Zheng walked into the office building, she saw the 2 gilded characters Tongui on the background wall in the law firm's lobby, and she felt a sense of intimacy. She had been busy with cases recently and hadn't been to the law firm for several days. Like most law firms, Hongding Law Firm had enclosed separate offices for partners and commission-based lawyers, while general salaried lawyers and trainee lawyers worked in open-plan offices. Therefore, as Gu Zheng walked through the office towards her office, several salaried lawyers and trainee lawyers who had obviously just arrived also raised their heads and watched Gu Zheng as if paying attention. Gu Zheng also nodded with a smile to show her gratitude. Ling Shu, a salaried lawyer sitting in the office on the far side, even stood up and said, "Good morning, Attorney Gu." Gu Zheng replied, "Good morning," and was about to walk past Ling Shu when she suddenly noticed that Ling Shui moved her mouth as if she had something to say to her. Gu Zheng and Ling Shui were the closest among the female lawyers in the law firm. This was not because they were alumni of Dongda, but because Ling Shui also loved literature. In college, Ling Shu was also a member of the Langtaosha Literary Club and usually liked to write poetry and essays. The 2 could be said to be kindred spirits. At this moment, Gu Zheng saw that Ling Shui seemed to have something to say to her, so she winked at her, walked straight through the corridor, and went to her office. As soon as Gu Zheng walked into her office, Ling Shu followed in like a tail and closed the door behind her and whispered, "Sister Gu, did you see that post?" While taking off her wool coat, Gu Zheng glanced at Ling Shui. "What post?" "That post on Tianya.com," Ling Shui said hesitantly. "People in the law firm, Director Huang and a few others have seen it." Ling Shu's expression was a bit mysterious. Gu Zheng knew that Ling Shu always liked to make a fuss and couldn't stay calm when something happened. She was a typical little girl but didn't pay attention to that. She hung her wool coat on the hanger and turned around to walk to her desk. At this moment, Ling Shu followed over, almost putting her mouth to her ear and saying, "Master Wu has been sued. Master Wu has been sued." "Wait a minute," Gu Zheng glared at Ling Shu and said, "What does this have to do with me?" "It has nothing to do with you, but something to do with your brother," Ling Shu said, pinching her throat. Her voice was very low, but it sounded like a thunderclap in Gu Zheng's ears. "My brother?" she repeated mechanically. She was stunned for a moment and couldn't bother to sit down. She turned on the computer, asking, "Which section is the post in?" Ling Shu said, "Voitsu of the People." Tianya.com was a very popular website in recent years. It had dozens of sections such as Literary Review, Voitsu of the People, Democracy and the Rule of Law, Travel and Leisure, International Observation, Stock Market Forum, Emotional World, Entertainment Gossip, and serialized novels. It was known as the online home of global Chinese. Some even joked that it was the online People's Daily, which showed its influence among netizens. Almost everyone in the law firm, starting with Director Huang Zupeng, visited Tianya.com daily. Some were even registered users who often posted and contributed to it. The topics they discussed usually came from Tianya.com. After logging into Tianya.com, Gu Zheng opened the Voitsu of the People section and quickly saw the post in the pinned articles. The title was very eye-catching, "Peeling Off the Master Wu's Mask." Gu Zheng browsed through it quickly, and with the lawyer's unique keenness and summarizing ability, quickly sorted out the post's main content. The post was a letter of accusation, and the object of the accusation was Master Wu Bozhong, the president of the Yuanji Culture Research Association. The letter of accusation listed several crimes of Master Wu, including raping women in the name of treating diseases, bribing officials in the name of practicing kung fu, and soliciting money from others in the name of accepting disciples, etc. There was specific evidence under each charge, and each one was shocking. But what really shocked Gu Zheng was that the accuser was her deceased brother, Zhong Tianyi. She saw that the posting date of the post was just a few days ago, and she muttered, "This is really ghostly." Ling Shu was one of the few colleagues in the law firm who knew that Gu Zheng's brother had passed away. She also seemed a little confused. "Maybe the poster is your brother's friend?" She pointed to the poster's column on the web page and reminded her cautiously. Following Ling Shu's finger, Gu Zheng saw a religious-sounding online name, Under the Bodhi Tree. She thought that if her brother really wrote the letter of accusation, then the relationship between the poster and her brother must be extraordinary. So who is this person? Did her brother really write this letter of accusation before his death? Could it be that someone was falsely using her brother's name? In Gu Zheng's impression, her brother and Master Wu had a very close relationship and had always addressed each other as master and disciple. Why would he sue his master? Ling Shu seemed to have guessed Gu Zheng's thoughts and said, "Master Wu has publicly refuted the rumors through the official website of the Yuanji Culture Research Association, saying that he will sue the rumor mongers." Gu Zheng oh-ed and sat down in her chair, her mind completely messed up by this post that seemed to have fallen from the sky. She rubbed her throbbing temples, waved her hand, and said softly, "I know. You can go out. Let me be alone for a while." Seeing that Gu Zheng's face was a little pale, Ling Shu quietly withdrew. 3. Hongding Doulao 1. On Saturday afternoon, Gu Zheng's phone rang just as she left work. It was Huang Zupeng, the director of the law firm. This leader of the Junding law firm rarely stayed in the office. He was either in court or socializing outside, and you had to make an appointment in advance to report your work to him. "You haven't left work yet, have you?" Gu Zheng knew that Huang Zupeng was driving when she heard the car horns and noise coming from the phone. "I'm just about to leave." She had only answered halfway when he interrupted her, saying, "That's perfect. Don't leave. Go to Hongding Doulao right away. I'm treating—" Gu Zheng was stunned. "Treating me?" Huang Zupeng said. "What, you're not giving your senior any face?" Gu Zheng didn't know how to answer, and the other party suddenly laughed. "Ha ha, don't be nervous. I'm kidding with you. Today I'm treating Liu Jiming. He helped me a lot with the case last time. I owe him a meal, and now he's been promoted to presiding judge, so we're having a meal together. You're coming along to keep me company." Gu Zheng remembered what Liu Jiming had said at the court last time and hesitated for a moment. "Besides me, who else is coming?" "Judge Liu specifically asked for you to come. I also invited Ling Shui. It's a small gathering today, just the 4 of us seniors and juniors." Huang Zupeng said, "I will pick up Lao Niu now. We'll arrive around 6:30. You and Ling Shui go directly to Hongding Doulao." After speaking, he hung up the phone. Gu Zheng looked at her watch. It wasn't even 5:30 yet, so she returned to her office to continue reading the case files she hadn't finished reading during the day while waiting for Ling Shui. She had only read a few pages when Ling Shu came in like a gust of wind. Looking at her pretty face, which was as red as a ripe apple, she knew that the wind had blown it. "I was almost home, and Director Huang called me back with one phone call." As soon as Ling Shu entered the door, she stomped her feet and put her hands to her mouth, constantly breathing while muttering with her petite mouth. It was indeed very cold outside. It hadn't been so cold when she went to work in the morning. The north wind blew all day and the temperature dropped significantly. The weather forecast said it was going to snow. "Director Huang is treating. Do you want to go or not?" Gu Zheng asked casually. "The leader specifically asked me to go. I have to go even if I don't want to. Sister Gu, don't you think so?" Ling Shu's words sounded helpless but also a bit showy, with a hint of shrewdness mixed in with her simplicity. Gu Zheng was speechless for a moment. She remembered Ling Shu's innocent look when she first entered the law firm. She was really worried that she wouldn't adapt to the environment here and would be eliminated soon. Who knew that Ling Shu had gone from a trainee lawyer to Huang Zupeng's assistant, step by step? In a few years, she had smoothly been promoted to a salaried lawyer, while the college students who had entered the law firm with her had disappeared without a trace. Ling Shui was lively and smart. During her time as Huang Zupeng's assistant, she learned to listen to the leader. Huang Zupeng would take her along for any social activities. After Ling Shu became a salaried lawyer, Huang Zupeng also cared for her. Whenever he handled important cases, he always let Ling Shui join in. He simply handed over some small cases that he didn't like Ling Shu to handle alone. Over time, Ling Shu's personality gradually became less simple than before, and there seemed to be a hint of sophistication in her eyes that she hadn't had before. "If I don't go, will you still go?" Gu Zheng asked, as if deliberately teasing her. "If you don't go," Ling Shu looked at Gu Zheng, saying a little hesitantly, "I'll probably still go." Ling Shu's childish expression touched Gu Zheng. Gu Zheng thought she wouldn't tell lies, and she was still a simple girl at heart. Seeing that Ling Shu's white hands were also frozen red, she took out a pair of wool gloves from the drawer of her desk, handed them to Ling Shu, and said, "These were knitted for me by my grandmother. They're a bit small. Your hands are smaller than mine. Wear them so you don't freeze." "They're so soft. Thank you, Sister Gu." Ling Shu took the gloves and squeezed them. "Your grandmother is so nice. Why haven't I heard you talk about her before?" "Silly girl, there are many things I haven't told you about." Gu Zheng glanced at her and smiled. The two of them left the law firm, got into the elevator, went downstairs, stopped a taxi at the door, and went to Hongding Doulao. Hongding Doulao was a seafood restaurant recently popular in Dajiang City. It was said that the ingredients were all air transported from Sanya, Hainan, which was very attractive to the people of Dajiang, located inland. The business was super good. Although the prices were not cheap, it was crowded on holidays. Gu Zheng and Ling Shui got out of the taxi and saw a crowd before Hongding Doulao. They couldn't help but click their tongues. Why are there so many people? This isn't much. If you don't make a reservation on holidays, you have to wait in a long line, Ling Shu said, taking Gu Zheng's arm and walking inside. The restaurant's first floor was a hall filled with densely packed tables. Every table was full, and the seafood on the tables was brightly colored and dazzling. The sounds of cups and plates clashing and the laughter of people dining rose and fell in the hall like waves. The scene was very spectacular. Ling Shu was obviously not coming to Hongding Doulao for the first time. She took Gu Zheng through the hall and walked upstairs. As soon as they arrived at the stairs, a waiter greeted them and politely asked if they had booked a private room. Ling Shu said the name of the private room, and the waiter led them there. Seeing Ling Shu acting like she knew the place well, Gu Zheng asked, "Have you been here before?" "I've been here once. Attorney Huang invited Judge Lei of the Criminal Division to of the Intermediate Court here last time." Ling Shu answered while looking around. "Judge Lei is also a graduate of Dongda, 2 years older than Director Huang. Don't you know him?" No, I don't know him," Gu Zheng stammered. At this time, they arrived at the private room. The waiter had already turned on the heating. When the two entered the private room, they felt warm and removed the tightly wrapped scarves. The private room wasn't big. There was a square dining table in the middle. The tabletop was marble as smooth as a mirror, reflecting people's shadows. The floor was also covered with marble, and blue light was emitted when illuminated by the lights on the ceiling. Gu Zheng looked at the name of the private room at the door, Aegean Sea, and thought that the environment and the name of the private room matched quite well. Huang Zupeng and Niu Jie hadn't arrived yet. Gu Zheng and Ling Shui sat down on a row of sofas against the wall. The waiter brought 2 cups of chrysanthemum tea and went out. Seeing that Gu Zheng seemed a little restrained since it was her first time here, Ling Shui took a magazine from the magazine rack by the sofa and handed it to her. "Sister Gu, you can flip through the magazine first. I'll call Attorney Huang to see where they are." Saying that, she took out her phone and walked to the private room door. Gu Zheng took the magazine and looked at the cover. Popular Art. This magazine was very influential in Dongjiang Province, and some large hotels and restaurants in Dajiang City had copies on display. Gu Zheng had also browsed through it when she went to restaurants to dine, waiting for the food to be served, but it was only a fleeting glance, not serious. At this moment, there was no one in the private room, which was unusually quiet. Gu Zheng casually flipped through the magazine. The printing was high-end and fashionable, and the content was mostly anecdotes about celebrities. Suddenly, her gaze stopped on one of the pages. An eye-catching title caught her eye. Little Swallow worships Master on Phoenix Island. Master Wu accepts disciples and passes on unique skills. Below the title was a large color photo, occupying 2 pages. In the photo, the famous movie star Little Swallow and an old man in Tang costume with white hair and a youthful face were holding hands and smiling. Their intimate appearance was like a pair of master and disciples and a father and daughter. Master Wu. Gu Zheng's gaze was attracted like a magnet. She stared at the familiar old man for a long time, not leaving. At this moment, Ling Shu, Huang Zupeng, and Niu Jie walked into the private room. As soon as Niu Jie saw Gu Zheng, a layer of greasy and sweet smile floated on his shiny fat face like an overbaked bread. "Gu Zheng, I was just telling Zupeng in the car that if you didn't come to dinner today, I would leave immediately. Fortunately, you finally gave me some face this time." Saying that, he exaggeratedly opened his arms as if he was going to hug her. However, until he approached Gu Zheng, she was still sitting on the sofa, holding that popular art, with no intention of getting up to greet him, so he put down his arms, let out 2 dry laughs, and sat down next to Gu Zheng. Yes, among the alumni in the Dajiang political and legal system, senior brother Niu usually takes the most care of our juniors, Huang Zupeng said, pulling a chair from the dining table and sitting down at the coffee table opposite the sofa. Especially for you, Gu Zheng. He was just asking when you will be promoted from a second-level partner lawyer to a first-level partner. Huang Zupeng was half a head taller than the short and fat Niu Jie. He was handsome and paid great attention to his dress. From his Swiss watch, Dunhill suit, and tie to his rhinoceros leather shoes, everything on him was a dazzling brand name. Usually, regardless of whether the weather was cold or hot, he wore a suit and leather shoes, as if he were about to attend some formal meeting at any time. He added a Gucci leather overcoat outside his suit today because it was cold. People who didn't know him would never think he was a lawyer. Maybe they would think he was a big star. Huang Zupeng and Niu Jie were the same age. Both were born in 1965, but Huang Zupeng was 1 year lower in school. He usually called the other party senior brother. In fact, Huang Zupeng was not a humble person. The reason why he acted abnormally in front of Niu Jie was, naturally, because he needed something from him. They both graduated from the law school of Dongda. Huang Zupeng was assigned to the Publicity and Education Department of the Provincial Department of Justice, and Niu Jie was assigned to the district court. According to ordinary people, Huang Zupeng's social status was higher than Niu Jie's, so the two didn't have much contact then. They were just acquaintances, let alone anyone asking for help. However, their relationship changed when Huang Zupeng resigned from the Department of Justice to start a law firm. At that time, Niu Jie became a judge himself after working as a running errands assistant for several years, and he began to hear cases independently. Huang Zupeng inevitably needed to find Niu Jie when handling cases. Over time, the relationship between the two became closer. Most of the lawyers in Junding law firm also knew that the two were on good terms. When they encountered cases that needed to find Judge Niu, they also asked Huang Zupeng to get them through. It happened that the first case that Gu Zheng handled independently after entering the law firm was also in the district court. Before the court hearing, Huang Zupeng took the initiative to suggest that Gu Zheng treat Judge Niu to a meal. After hearing this, Gu Zheng opened her eyes wide and asked, "I don't know, Judge Niu. Why should I treat him to a meal?" Huang Zupeng said, "Why? Don't you know that the presiding judge of your case, who will be heard in 2 days, is Niu Jie?" Gu Zheng nodded. "I know. Just because of this, a treat?" Huang Zupeng looked at Gu Zheng's confused expression, shrugged his shoulders with a wry smile, and muttered, "I'm a little regretful now that I encouraged you to become a lawyer." Huang Zupeng's words seemed to make Gu Zheng understand something. Although she was several years younger than Huang Zupeng, the Department of Justice and the Women's Federation were neighbors, and they saw each other often, so they gradually became familiar. At that time, Gu Zheng didn't know much about this senior who was several years older than her. She only felt that he was enthusiastic and had a wide range of contacts. No new of the Dongda alumni in the political and legal system knew him. He was also happy to help others. Once, Gu Zheng had a gallbladder attack in the middle of the night and was in so much pain that she couldn't walk. She called Huang Zupeng for help. Huang Zupeng was a local and didn't usually live at the unit. After receiving the call, he immediately rushed from his home several miles away to the Provincial Women's Federation dormitory, took her to the hospital for emergency treatment, stayed with her until the next morning, and then took her back to the unit. Later, Huang Zupeng resigned to start a law firm, which caused a sensation in the Department of Justice. Many people felt he was too rash, but Gu Zheng thought he was very brave. She admired this senior in her heart. At that time, Gu Zheng was becoming increasingly tired of the work of the Rights Protection Committee of the Women's Federation and was preparing to take the bar exam. Once, she ran into Huang Zupeng and half-jokingly asked, "Senior, if I pass the bar exam and apply to your law firm, would you welcome me?" Huang Zupeng seemed slightly surprised and thought for a moment before saying, "You're my junior. Of course I'd welcome you, but with your petit bourgeois personality, being a lawyer might not be suitable." Gu Zheng was originally a sensitive person with strong self-esteem. She heard a hint of contempt and said disapprovingly, "You think I can't do the job of a lawyer? You're underestimating me too much." Huang Zupeng explained, "That's not what I meant." Gu Zheng didn't listen and turned to leave. Seeing that she was really angry, Huang Zupeng changed his tone and said, "Okay, as long as you get a law license, I'll definitely welcome you." At that time, Gu Zheng still listened to Huang Zupeng's suggestion and treated Niu Jie to a meal. However, from contacting the restaurant, booking the private room, and inviting Niu Jie, Huang Zupeng took care of everything. He even paid the bill, which was reimbursed to the law firm. Gu Zheng just went as a person. That was the first time she met Niu Jie. Although he was unremarkable, even a little lewd, and didn't look like a judge, he was quite easygoing. As soon as he heard that Gu Zheng was also a graduate of the law school of Dongda, he immediately asked her which year she graduated. "The class of 1993? I'm the class of 1986, almost 10 years above you. Quickly call me senior brother. No, at your age, should you call me uncle?" At that time, although Gu Zheng had graduated for several years, she had little social experience and was still like a college student who had just left school. After hearing what Niu Jie said, she really called him uncle. Who knew that this one call was nothing, but Huang Zupeng didn't like it and shouted at Niu Jie, "Gu Zheng usually calls me senior brother. You're asking her to call you uncle. Aren't you taking advantage of me?" Niu Jie curled his lips, put on a big brother's airs, and said, "Zupeng, don't be unconvinced. Tang Fei was your counselor, wasn't he? But he was in the same class as me. Although we're only 1 year apart, the seniority is different." Huang Zupeng immediately deflated like a punctured balloon and said nothing. Niu Jie smiled triumphantly and said to Gu Zheng, "Zupeng cheated on the law exam and was caught by Tang Fei. By the way, have you taken Tang Fei's class? He's the law school's dean now, do you know that?" When Gu Zheng heard Niu Jie mention Tang Fei, her face blushed for some reason. She nodded and then shook her head. Niu Jie didn't understand what she meant and was about to ask the question to the end when Huang Zupeng interrupted by asking with a wine glass, "I heard that Dean Tang's wife is very beautiful. Is that true?" Niu Jie seemed to be even more excited, sticking out his neck and saying, "Of course, she graduated from the Department of Foreign Languages of Dongda, and she was the most beautiful girl in the department back then, but—" He glanced at Gu Zheng and smiled ambiguously. "Compared to junior sister Gu, she's just so-so." Huang Zupeng retorted, "Weren't you asking Gu Zheng to call you uncle just now? Why are you actively lowering your seniority?" The two of them argued and drank, and in a short while, a bottle of Wuliangye was finished. Huang Zupeng said that he would get the wine, and only Gu Zheng and Niu Jie were left in the private room. Niu Jie was obviously drunk. His speech was slurred, and he stared straight at Gu Zheng. The look in his eyes made Gu Zheng feel uneasy. Just as she was about to find a reason to leave, Niu Jie's fat hand had already stretched out and grabbed her hand. Junior sister, you look like that someone. Pan Hong, yes, Pan Hong, you have a real temperament. As soon as I see you—" As he spoke, he stroked Gu Zheng's hand. "Your case is in my hands." Niu Jie exhaled a pungent smell of alcohol, which made Gu Zheng feel nauseous and unable to breathe. Seeing Niu Jie's face getting closer and closer, her hand was being held tightly by the other party like a pair of pliers, unable to move. At this crucial moment, Huang Zupeng came in with a bottle of wine. Niu Jie's hand trembled. Taking this opportunity, Gu Zheng struggled to break free, got up, and ran out of the private room. Huang Zupeng shouted, "Gu Zheng," from behind, but she didn't turn her head back. Since then, Gu Zheng had never eaten with Niu Jie again. 4. Hongding Doulao, 2. At that moment, as Niu Jie walked into the private room, Gu Zheng felt a little awkward, but seeing the other person laughing and chatting, acting as if nothing were wrong, she relaxed a bit. Out of courtesy, she shifted slightly on the sofa, making a little space, and said with a slight smile, "I heard from Lawyer Huang that senior brother has become a presiding judge. I'm here to congratulate you." Niu Jie said, Not only should you congratulate me, you should also thank me. Gu Zheng sensed that there was more to his words than met the eye, so she asked, "What do you mean by that?" Liu Jie didn't answer, instead showing a secretive expression. Huang Zupeng reminded Gu Zheng, "Wasn't that legal aid case of yours withdrawn? Judge Niu played an important role in that." Gu Zheng said, "Oh." She had been puzzled a while ago as to why Liu Jie had suddenly withdrawn the lawsuit, so that's why. But she didn't understand. Liu Jie withdrew the lawsuit. Why should I thank Liu Jie? She was a little unable to sort out the relationships and interests involved. Just as she was puzzled, Huang Zupeng gave her another pointer. If this case had continued, not only would your client not have benefited, but you yourself would have been implicated and dragged into the pit. So Judge Niu let the case be withdrawn, which is the same as helping you. Gu Zheng remembered that Liu Jie had said something similar to her last time she went to the district court. She seemed to understand something, and yet seemed to understand nothing. Just as she was about to think further, the waiter began to serve the dishes. 2 waiters took turns serving the dishes. Before long, all kinds of seafood were filling the table. Gu Zheng had never seen so much seafood in her life. She felt dazzled and couldn't name most of them. Ling Shu, several years younger than her and had seen a lot of the world, could name every dish as it was served. At that moment, she pointed to a large platter that the waiter had just brought and said, "This is chilled salmon arranged on a platter." Gu Zheng followed her finger and saw that a crystal-clear ice boat was docked in the center of the table. The ice boat was covered with slices of salmon. Reflected by the ice boat, the yellow lines on the salmon slices were clearly visible, exquisite and translucent, and particularly tempting. "Raw salmon has too strong a fishy smell. You must dip it in mustard, lemon, and sesame oil." Ling Shu took 2 small plates of dipping sauce from the waiter, giving one to Liu Jie, sitting to her right, and placing the other in front of Gu Zheng, seated to her left. Looking at her skillful manner, Gu Zheng couldn't help but think that she must have eaten a lot of seafood these past few years as Huang Zupeng's assistant, right? "There's something special about eating seafood," Huang Zupeng said, taking out a bottle of Mutai liquor from who knows where and waving it in front of everyone as if performing a magic trick. He deliberately held back, asking, "Gu Zheng, what do you say it is?" "How would I know?" Gu Zheng looked at Huang Zupeng, feeling that the way he was holding the bottle of wine was like holding a hand grenade, ready to throw it out at any moment. She remembered that Ling Shu had once told her that the trunk of Huang Zupeng's Audi car was like a wine cellar filled with all kinds of good wine. She had also asked her if Lawyer Huang had been a reporter before and how he was so familiar with the people at the newspaper. Gu Zheng had only said that Huang Zupeng had worked in the propaganda and education section of the Department of Justice and had a lot of dealings with the news media. What she didn't tell Ling Shui was that the reason Huang Zupeng had been so successful in the Dajing legal community these past few years was not only because of his deep connections in the news media, but also because of the alumni circle of Dongda in the political and legal circles. "I know," Ling Shu said, raising her hand like a student answering a teacher's question. "You have to drink white wine with seafood. The higher the proof, the better." "Absolutely correct." Huang Zupeng snapped his fingers and casually filled Ling Shu's glass, saying, "Ling Shui, the case you took over is now in Judge Niu's Civil Division 2. You have to drink well with him today." "How can I drink as much as Judge Niu?" Ling Shu said, turning her face to Liu Jie as if seeking help. But Liu Jie put on a lazy expression, as if saying it was up to you whether you drink or not. Ling Shu turned her face to Gu Zheng again, putting on a pitiful look of helplessness. "Sister Gu, please help me." Gu Zheng never drank alcohol, and she wasn't used to this kind of drinking party. That was why she rarely attended dinners with colleagues and classmates. She felt the same way now. For some reason, she felt that Ling Shu was acting in concert with Huang Zupeng and Liu Jie. Therefore, she not only turned a blind eye to Ling Shu's request for help, but also felt repulsed from the bottom of her heart. She suddenly found Ling Shu a bit strange, completely different from the simple, romantic junior sister who loved poetry. She was the kind of social butterfly that was common in novels and movies. She suddenly regretted that she shouldn't have come to this dinner. Perhaps because of what he had learned, Liu Jie sat on the side without saying anything. Huang Zupeng, who understood Gu Zheng's personality, quickly smoothed things over. Gu Zheng never drinks alcohol. It's already great that she came. Just drink juice, apple juice, or watermelon juice, he asked Gu Zheng, appearing very considerate. The weather was cold, and Gu Zheng had just had her period, so she didn't want to drink anything cold, but Huang Zupeng took it upon himself to order the waiter, "Bring a pitcher of watermelon juice." Gu Zheng didn't want to stop him, but she quietly gave Huang Zupeng a thumbs up, expressing her thanks for his concern. After a few rounds of drinks, the atmosphere in the private room gradually heated up. Huang Zupeng and Liu Jie were both heavy drinkers, drinking glass after glass without changing color, chatting and laughing. Ling Shui had only drunk 2 small glasses with Liu Jie, but her face was already as red as if it had been smeared with chicken blood. Liu Jie snatched the wine bottle from Huang Zupeng's hand to fill Ling Shui's glass again. Ling Shu covered her glass with her hand, moving her body towards Gu Zheng while asking Huang Zupeng for help. "Lawyer Huang, you know that I really can't drink anymore. Please say something." Seeing that she really looked pitiful, Huang Zupeng took the wine bottle back from Liu Jie. "Forget it, Judge Liu. You're the senior brother, so let the junior sister off the hook. She used to get dizzy as soon as she touched alcohol, but now she's already made a lot of progress. Don't be too hasty. Take it slowly." He turned his face to Ling Shu and said, "You drink watermelon juice with Gu Zheng to sober up." Ling Shu was pardoned and moved closer to Gu Zheng again, taking her hand and saying in a low voice, "Senior brother Huang really cares about us." Gu Zheng moved her body to the side, feeling that Ling Shui's hand was trembling slightly and was a little hot. She wanted to say something, but her lips moved and said nothing. The bottle of mutai was almost empty, but Huang Zupeng and Liu Jie were still in high spirits, talking non-stop as they drank. Liu Jie finished the wine in his glass, took a piece of salmon directly from the ice boat with his hand, dipped it in some mustard in the dipping sauce in front of him, and stuffed it into his mouth, chewing as he said, "Zupeng, did you hear Zhuang Guodong? Old Zhuang has been promoted." Huang Zupeng, halfway through drinking the wine in his glass, stopped and asked, "Oh, promoted to where?" "The Supreme Court." Liu Jie's thick lips moved rapidly, and a strand of green mustard juice dripped from the corner of his mouth. "Vitsu President." As soon as the words "Vitsu President" came out, the mustard juice dripped from the corner of Liu Jie's mouth, landing on the snow-white tablecloth. Gu Zheng saw it and felt a little disgusted, but she couldn't show it. She had to bury her head and drink a mouthful of watermelon juice, suppressing the nauseating feeling that was blocking her chest. The Zhuang Guodong that Liu Jie was talking about was the president of the provincial high court. He was also a graduate of Dongda and the honorary president of the Dongda Alumni Association of the political and legal system. Gu Zheng had long heard of his name, but had never had the chance to meet him. "Really?" Huang Zupeng opened his eyes and mouth wide, his eyes shining. "Old Zhuang is Tang Fei's teacher, and you and Tang Fei are classmates. Now your big brother's backer is even stronger. Congratulations, congratulations, drink." After saying that, he raised his neck and drank the remaining half of the glass of wine. Same to you," Liu Jie said, laughing. "A few days ago, Tang Fei and I went to see old Zhuang off together. He even asked about you at the banquet. He had a good impression of you." "I've only met old Zhuang once at the Political and Legal System Alumni Association last New Year's Day. Would he remember me?" Huang Zupeng seemed not to believe it very much. "That shows you know how to handle things," Liu Jie said, half praising and half teasing. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he turned his gaze to Gu Zheng and said, "Oh, right, Gu Zheng. Tang Fei asked about you last time, too." Gu Zheng avoided Liu Jie's gaze and stammered, "Really? Does Teacher Tang still remember me?" "President Tang not only remembers you, he's also very concerned about you," Liu Jie said, his words sounding a little ambiguous. He asked me to take care of you more." At this moment, Ling Shu picked up a slice of salmon, dipped it in mustard, and put it on Gu Zheng's plate. Gu Zheng didn't know how to deal with Niu Jie's words, so she picked up the salmon with her chopsticks and put it in her mouth. As soon as she chewed it twice, a spicy taste rushed straight from her nasal cavity to the top of her head. She was stimulated to the point where tears immediately welled up in her eyes, and she felt a burst of discomfort. Seeing this, Ling Shu quickly brought over a glass of plain water. Gu Zheng felt better after drinking 2 mouthfuls. Speaking of Tang Fei, he's quite talented. He was at the top of his class back then and chairman of the department's student union. Later, he was recommended to study for a master's degree without taking the exam. After staying at the school, he went from associate professor to professor, deputy director of the law department, director to vice president and law school president. "Everything has been very smooth," Niu Jie said in the tone of a close friend. "It's just a pity about his wife." "Isn't his wife, the belle of the foreign language department, very beautiful?" Huang Zupeng asked in surprise. "Because she was too beautiful, she has been working as a secretary for provincial leaders. She's called a secretary, but actually—" Niu Jie glanced at Gu Zheng and Ling Shui, swallowed half of his words, and gave Huang Zupeng a look. "You understand?" Huang Zupeng said, "Oh," as if he understood. "Don't look at old Tang. He is now a prominent figure in the Dongjiang legal community, but quite pitiful. He often asks me to have a drink to drown his sorrows. He can't drink much and gets drunk after only a little," Niu Jie continued. "But then again, without his wife's background, Tang Fei wouldn't have been able to have a smooth career in academia and politics. I guess that's what you call having to lose something to gain something, right?" "Come on, let's not talk about Tang Fei. Let's have one." Huang Zupeng cut off Niu Jie's words, drank the wine in his glass, and grabbed the wine bottle to fill Niu Jie's glass again. He shook it. The bottle was already empty, so he stood up. "I'll get the wine from the car." But Niu Jie stopped him, saying, "Let's stop here today. Let's find Tang Fei to drink together next time and bring Gu Zheng along too." After saying that, he looked at Gu Zheng. "Junior sister, you won't refuse to give Tang Fei a face at that time, will you?" Niu Jie's sarcastic tone made Gu Zheng blush again. At that moment, Huang Zupeng's phone rang. He looked at the number, said, "Sorry, I'm going to take a call," and got up to leave the private room. After about 5 minutes, Huang Zupeng came back. As soon as he returned to the private room, he said as if announcing an important piece of news. "I found out." "Found out what?" Several people were confused. "The Bodhi tree who spread rumors and slandered Master Wu on the internet." "Bodhi tree? Who is that?" "This person is the deputy editor-in-chief of Popular Arts magazine," Huang Zupeng said, picking up the magazine that Gu Zheng had read from the sofa. "Also an alumnus of our Dongda, a graduate of the Chinese department named Wang Sheng." Hearing the words Wang Sheng, Gu Zheng was shocked. For a full minute, her mind was blank. Later, she heard Huang Zupeng say loudly, "The person who called me just now was Du Wei, the chairman of Popular Arts and Media Group, Wang Sheng's direct superior. Master Wu is his godfather. Chairman Du told me that Master Wu has decided to file a criminal lawsuit in court and has asked me to be the lawyer for this case. This is destined to be a case that will attract much social attention, Judge Niu. This is the first fire you'll be burning after taking office. Come. To win this lawsuit, let's have a drink." Without waiting for them to clink glasses, Gu Zheng suddenly stood up, claiming that she felt uncomfortable, and walked out of the private room. Huang Zupeng called out from behind. "Hey, Gu Zheng! Where are you going? The program isn't over yet. We're going to do karaoke later." Chapter 3. 1. Under the Bodhi Tree. For a long time, Wang Sheng couldn't forget the shock and grief he felt when he read Zhang Tianyi's letter. "Life is slipping away from me at a rate of seconds per unit of time. I don't even have the strength to read books or surf the internet now. I haven't finished reading the electronic version of the biography of Zhang Da that you sent me. I can only take it to the grave to read. However, if I meet Zhang Da over there, I can ask him about the things you wrote in your book in person. But I still have some questions. Is he really my grandfather?" Finally, Zhang Tianyi mentioned the letter of accusation. Wang Sheng, I swear to you, every word in this letter of accusation is true. I once sent it to the Provincial Commission for Discipline Inspection, the Provincial Party Committee Propaganda Department, the Provincial Supervision Department, the Provincial Public Security Department, and the Provincial Letters and Visits Office. But every letter sank like a stone and disappeared without a trace. Time is passing day by day, and life is like the leaves of autumn, falling from me piece by piece. When the autumn leaves have all fallen, my life will come to an end. I am not afraid of death, but I am afraid that the ugliness and evil deeds of those people will never be known with my death. If that is the case, it is 100 times more terrible than death itself. Tragically, I was once one of these people. Every time I think of this, I feel that although death is the punishment I deserve, it cannot redeem my debt unless the perpetrators also receive the punishment they deserve. If I can't, I must make public what I have experienced and know. Only in this way can I remove myself from them and gain peace of mind. But now I don't have much time left. I can only send it to you. Please save it for me and say one more sentence. It is good even if evil deeds cannot be punished as they should be. Being exposed and whipped is also good. Farewell, my friend. When he saw the words, "Farewell, my friend," Wang Sheng's eyes were already blurred with tears. He vaguely remembered the scene when Zhong Tianyi treated him and Ba Dong to shredded pork noodles in a small restaurant in town after receiving his salary as a handyman in the brick factory, and the scene when he fled to Pigushan Mountain overnight from the brick factory after hearing his father's message. It is good even if evil deeds cannot be punished as they should be. Being exposed and whipped is also good. This sentence echoed repeatedly in Wang Sheng's mind. He was surprised that Zhong Tianyi, who was not well educated, could say such aphorisms. At that moment, he suddenly had a strong impulse to do something, not only for Zhong Tianyi, but also because of that sentence. Half a year later, Wang Sheng used his registered account, Under the Bodhi Tree, to post Zhong Tianyi's letter of accusation on Tianya.com. Although Wang Sheng knew the influence of Tianya.com, he was still a little surprised by everything that happened later. That post quickly flew up on the internet like it had wings. Large and small websites across the country forwarded it in just a few days. They changed it to a more eye-catching title, Master of Yuanji Gong, accused of sexually assaulting female disciple, who is Wu Bozhong's illegitimate son. In Dajiang City, the topic of Master Wu being accused was like a snowball, getting bigger and bigger. Even the Dajiang Morning Post and the Dajiang Evening News, which had the largest number of paid subscribers, reported the news. People were discussing this matter for a time, even in restaurants, bars, and buses. It was even more so at the popular art Mudia group. Employees addressed the topic with excitement on their faces in the cafeteria, but also spoke evasively. This was natural because Master Wu was the godfather of Chairman Du Wei. Once, several young editors and distributors were eating and whispering to each other when they suddenly saw Chairman Du Wei, who rarely ate in the cafeteria, walking in with a stainless steel lunchbox. They all stopped talking at the same time. Du Wei obviously heard what they were discussing. His eyes were very gloomy, and his face was like it had been frosted over. After a few days, that post on Tianya.com suddenly disappeared. Then, the posts forwarded by other websites also disappeared. Obviously, this was a unified deletion operation. Soon, news spread that the Yuanji Culture Research Association issued a statement saying that the so-called letter of accusation on the internet was purely rumor-mongering and defamation, and Master Wu would pursue the legal responsibility of the rumor-mongers per the law and so on. The news quickly spread to the popular art Mudia group. People suddenly felt put out and no longer discussed the matter. If someone talked about it, they would quickly avoid it, fearing being regarded as a rumor monger. One morning, Jiang Xin suddenly broke into Wang Sheng's office and said mysteriously, "Have you heard? Master Wu has started investigating." Investigating what? Wang Sheng was reading the latest issue of the manuscript and looked up at Jiang Xin in a daze. He seemed slightly surprised, either because the other party hadn't been to his office for a long time or because of her sensational words. Jiang Xin's promotion to editor-in-chief of the popular art media group was originally a sure thing. Since editor-in-chief Wu Yang retired, she had been acting as editor-in-chief. But 2 days before the formal appointment was announced, Zheng Yue, the former deputy editor-in-chief of the popular art magazine, was suddenly transferred back to the popular art media group from the position of deputy director of the Theoretical Research Office of the Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles. Although the specific position she would hold was not announced, it was difficult not to arouse everyone's speculation. Sure enough, at the group's cadre and employee conference held 2 days later, Secretary General Huang, a member of the party group of the Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles and in charge of personnel, announced an appointment. Zheng Yue would serve as the editor-in-chief of the popular art media group. Secretary General Huang was the Director Huang of the Personnel Department, who first talked to Wang Sheng when he was assigned to the Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles. When the appointment decision was announced, Wang Sheng was sitting next to Jiang Xin. He saw her face turn red and white for a while, then suddenly stood up and left the venue. Wang Sheng looked at Du Wei, who was sitting next to Secretary General Huang on the rostrum, and his face also seemed a little embarrassed. Soon, several pieces of inside information spread from the Federation of Literary and Art Circles. One said that the reason for the dramatic change in the group's personnel appointment was that someone wrote a letter to the Provincial Party Committee Propaganda Department and the party group of the Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles, accusing Du Wei and Jiang Xin of having an improper sexual relationship. There were also photos of them having sex in a hotel during a business trip. It was said that Du Wei's wife, Jiang Lili, wrote the letter. The evidence was conclusive, and the superiors had to change generals at the last minute. Another said that Zheng Yue, who was 57 years old, was entrusted with important tasks because her husband became the minister of the Provincial Party Committee Organization Department last year. Inevitably, her husband became important, and she benefited. Wang Sheng was dubious. If it was really Du Wei's wife, Jiang Lili, who reported it, how could she get the photos of Du Wei and Jiang Xin having sex in the hotel? Moreover, the relationship between a man and a woman is a matter between two people. Why was Jiang Xin's acting editor-in-chief dismissed, but Chairman Du Wei was unscathed? Therefore, Wang Sheng felt that the latter rumor was more likely. Moreover, his speculation was confirmed to some extent by Jiang Xin's reaction. If it was because of the former, how could she have the face to stay in the group? But other than being a little depressed for the first few days, she didn't seem to be greatly affected. Of course, since then, Jiang Xin and Du Wei were not as close as before, and their relationship was obviously alienated a lot. Another change was that Jiang Xin, since becoming the acting editor-in-chief, had raised her eyes to her forehead and ignored Wang Sheng when she saw him. Now, she had condescended to come to his office. At this moment, Wang Sheng looked at Jiang Xin, who had an excited face, and repeated, "Investigating what?" "The poster, of course." Jiang Xin got closer, and Wang Sheng smelled a strong scent of perfume on her body. At the same time, his heart couldn't help but skip a beat. "These days, Du Wei hasn't come to work. Do you know what he's been doing?" "He's been running to Beijing a lot recently," Wang Sheng said absent-mindedly. "He's probably busy with the group's stock listing." "Oh, President Ba from Beijing is helping with the shareholding reform. The final procedures have been completed, and we're just waiting for the listing." Jiang Xin waved her hand like she was brushing away a fly before her. "Chairman Du has been busy helping his godfather with crisis public relations these days. Do you know how those posts disappeared from the internet? It's all Du Wei's credit. I heard that he even used hackers to find the poster. Actually, I don't even need to investigate to know what kind of person posted it." Wang Sheng's heart skipped a beat again. That letter of accusation was posted on the internet after Zhang Tianyi died. The person who posted it definitely wouldn't be him. Otherwise, it would really be a ghost. Wang Sheng didn't say a word and continued to listen to Jiang Xin. Not only was Zhang Tianyi a fellow villager and good friend of Du Wei, but he was also a director of our popular art mudia. Including you and me, which of the middle-level and above cadres in the group isn't familiar with him? Jiang Xin said, suddenly lowering her voice. In my opinion, that poster called Under the Bodhi Tree is far away in the sky, close at hand, most likely inside our group. Wang Sheng subconsciously avoided Jiang Xin's gaze. Did she guess that I posted the post? This thought flashed in Wang Sheng's mind. As if he was a member of the underground resistance in a movie who had his identity exposed by the enemy, he became calm instead. He calmly met Jiang Xin's gaze, and a sentence almost blurted out. Yes, Zhang Tianyi's letter of accusation was posted by me. I am under the Bodhi tree. Go and report me to Du Wei. But at this moment, Jiang Xin suddenly curled her lips and gave a cold smile. If I were Du Wei, I wouldn't even bother to investigate this under the Bodhi tree. Why? Why do you say that? Wang Sheng was stunned and swallowed the words that had reached his lips. I've read that letter of accusation carefully. It's hard to say whether Zhang Tianyi was really forced to donate 1 million yuan by Master Wu. Still, what Zhang Tianyi said about his daughter, An, being born after Master Wu seduced his wife Meng Fei under the guise of treating infertility doesn't seem like he made it up. Zhang Tianyi is at least a well-known and respected entrepreneur. Why would a terminally ill person who is about to die put a green hat on his own head and fabricate such a lie? And I've also heard that many women on Phoenix Island have sought Master Wu to treat infertility, and many children are like Master Wu with a pair of hawk eyes. Jiang Xin glanced at Wang Sheng and suddenly asked, By the way, don't you think Du Wei's eyes are also very similar to Master Wu's? Some people say Master Wu is not Du Wei's godfather but his biological father. Do you believe it? Jiang Xin's words surprised Wang Sheng again. He stared at the other party in a daze and increasingly felt that this woman was unfathomable. Hasn't she always had an ambiguous relationship with Du Wei? What is the purpose of saying this? Could she be testing me? Or did she turn against Du Wei after not becoming the editor-in-chief and taking the opportunity to kick him when he was down? If so, this woman is too scary. He remembered the words he had heard from the old editor-in-chief Ouyang Peidu and the deputy general manager Yan Kui, and couldn't help but shiver secretly. If the problems reflected in the letter of accusation are true, then that under the Bodhi tree has become a hero. Jiang Xin said half-truthfully, If Du Wei finds out who under the Bodhi tree is, I'll marry him. Marry who? Wang Sheng didn't understand for a moment. Du Wei or that under the Bodhi tree? Of course it's under the Bodhi tree, Jiang Xin said firmly. Beauties have loved heroes since ancient times. Although I'm not young anymore, I can't lower my standards. Wang Sheng's face turned red after hearing this, but Jiang Xin didn't notice his expression and used the topic to her advantage. I know that some people in the group, like Yan Kui and Lao Ouyang, have been spreading rumors about me and Du Wei and even photoshopped hotel photos. They're despicable enough. They're looking at people through a crack in the door and underestimate me. How can I be considered anything less than a Central Academy of Drama graduate? In my eyes, Du Wei is just a bumpkin, even if he has a high position and great power. Moreover, what he's done in the group these years, if you don't want anyone to know, don't do it. This time it's his godfather. Next time it'll probably be his turn. When she said this, she suddenly realized something and stopped. I forgot that you and Du Wei are fellow villagers. You won't tell him what I said, will you? Wang Sheng stammered. How could I? What are you thinking? But Jiang Xin didn't seem to believe Wang Sheng's words entirely. She regretted letting something slip, and after talking about other things for a few sentences, she left. The Popular Art Media Group has 3 publications and 3 editorial departments under its jurisdiction: Dongjiang Pictorial, Chinese Stories, and Popular Art. Wang Sheng and Jiang Xin take turns on duty, responsible for reviewing the manuscripts submitted by each editorial department and then submitting the reviewed manuscripts to the editor-in-chief for approval. Wang Sheng was on duty for this issue. Since Ouyang Peidu retired and the new editor-in-chief had not taken office, After reviewing the manuscripts, he had to submit them to the group's deputy general manager in charge of distribution for review. Before each issue of the publication is published, the manuscript must be reviewed by the deputy general manager in charge of distribution. Since Doulao was transferred to the popular art magazine, it was necessary to ensure the publication's readability. Because of this, Ouyang Peidu often had friction with Doulao and Yan Kui. What qualifications does a junior high school student have to review the manuscripts? Lao Ouyang said dismissively. At his insistence, the rule of letting Yan Kui review the manuscripts was once abolished, but soon after Lao Ouyang retired, this rule was restored. Although Yan Kui was the group's deputy general manager, because he was mainly in charge of distribution, he still worked in the distribution department on the second floor. The corridors on the second floor and the stairwells were filled with expired magazines, and people came and went, which was very noisy. Even the air was filled with a choking smell of paper and dust mixed together. Yan Kui's office was open. When Wang Sheng went in, Yan Kui was lecturing a female employee. The end of the year is coming soon, and you haven't completed even half of your task. There is still half a month to settle the accounts. If you still don't complete it, not to mention bonuses and wages, your deposit will be deducted completely. He had one hand on his hip and one hand waving in the air, constantly roaring. The female employee stood before him with her head lowered and a crying face, and tears were about to flow out. Yan Kui implemented a strict management method in the distribution department. Employees had to pay a deposit before starting work. If they didn't complete the task, they would not only not have wages but also have their deposit deducted. Seeing this now, it was indeed well-deserved. Wang Sheng stood at the door and knocked on the door. When Yan Kui looked up and saw him, he restrained the anger on his face and waved his hand like he was driving away flies. The female employee left the office as if she had been granted amnesty. "Please come in. Please come in, Deputy General Manager Wang. It's rare for you to come to my place." Yan Kui looked at the thick stack of manuscripts that Wang Sheng was holding, bowed with both hands, and looked flattered. "How can I bother you to come in person? You can send someone to deliver it or call me to come up and get it." As he spoke, he took the manuscripts from Wang Sheng's hand. "I recently went on a business trip to Fujian and bought 2 boxes of Dahongpao tea. I gave 1 box to Chairman Du and kept a bag for myself. I'll let you try it." Saying that, he was going to make tea for Wang Sheng. It was the first time Wang Sheng had entered Yan Kui's office. The room was filled with expired magazines everywhere, just like the corridor outside. It was difficult to find a place to stand. Wang Sheng wanted to leave quickly, but Yan Kui grabbed his hand and almost pushed him onto a deck chair. "Don't leave! I have something to say to you." Seeing Yan Kui's serious expression, Wang Sheng didn't say anything more. Yan Kui made tea, handed it to Wang Sheng, and sat down on a sofa next to him that was also piled with magazines. "About the post. Have you heard about it?" Wang Sheng stared at the tea leaves floating in the teacup and said perfunctorily, I heard about it. I just came back from a business trip. I heard that the chairman is already investigating the poster. Who do you think it could be?" Wang Sheng didn't expect Yan Kui to ask this question as soon as he opened his mouth, and said evasively, How would I know? I haven't exchanged ideas with the chairman yet." A strange expression appeared on Yan Kui's face. "But in my opinion, this matter is not only directed at Master Wu, but also at Chairman Du. People on the outside may not know the relationship between Master Wu and Chairman Du. Therefore, I dare say that the poster is someone inside our group." Wang Sheng's heart skipped a beat, but not only did he not feel nervous, he was a little curious, so he tentatively asked, "Our group? Who?" "Besides Lao Ouyang, who else could it be?" Yan Kui said with a very firm tone. "Ever since Chairman Du entered the magazine, Lao Ouyang has been at odds with him. Over the years, he has been outwardly compliant but inwardly defiant to every decision of the chairman, and has even openly resisted. Everyone in the group knows this. Not long ago, to get more shares after the group was listed, he wanted to postpone his retirement but didn't succeed. He must be resentful of the chairman. You say, who else could this under the Bodhi tree be if not him? Wang Sheng listened to Yan Kui's confident tone, and it took him a long time to squeeze out a sentence. But editor-in-chief Wu Yang has been in the hospital recently. Besides, he rarely goes online and is not very good at typing. Of course, besides Lao Wu Yang, another person is the most suspicious. Who else? Who? Zhang Xin, Deputy Director Zhang. Yan Kui lightly spat out a few words like he was spitting out melon seeds. The position of editor-in-chief that was within reach flew away. She must hate Chairman Du to death. As the saying goes, a woman's heart is poisonous, and women are 100 times more vengeful than men. I heard that her favorite website to visit is Tianya.com, and she often posts articles on it. Under the Bodhi tree, doesn't that sound like a woman's name? Wang Sheng saw a nearly malicious expression on Yan Kui's lewd face and couldn't help but shudder. Deputy Director Wang, you and I are both Chairman Du's people. On this matter, we must clearly support the chairman. Before Yan Kui could finish his words, Wang Sheng suddenly stood up from the rattan chair, said, I have something urgent to attend to, and fled as if he was escaping. 2. Showdown. The pre-publication meeting is usually held around the 20th of each month, but due to the recent appointment of the new editor-in-chief, Zheng Yue, this issue's meeting was delayed for more than a week. In addition to the newly appointed editor-in-chief Zheng Yue, Chairman Du Wei, who rarely attended pre-publication meetings, also appeared in the conference room at this issue's meeting. Wang Sheng, along with the others, assumed that he came to attend the pre-publication meeting to show his support for the newly appointed editor-in-chief Zheng Yue, or that because it was the last issue of the year. In addition to reviewing the manuscripts to be published in this issue, the topics for the first issue of next year would also need to be planned. As chairman, he should naturally attach special importance to it. However, they soon realized that they were wrong. From the moment he appeared in the conference room, apart from saying a few words in a low voice to the editor-in-chief Zheng Yue sitting next to him, Du Wei kept a straight face and didn't say a word. He only grunted through his nose at the editors-in-chief, who had deliberately walked up to him to greet him after entering the conference room and didn't even lift his eyelids. Before the pre-publication meeting had even started, an unusual atmosphere was already present in the conference room. According to the usual practice of pre-publication meetings, after the editor-in-chief commented on the manuscripts one by one, the deputy editor-in-chief, the deputy general manager, and the editors-in-chief of each editorial department would express their opinions. Even if the chairman attended, he would wait until everyone had finished speaking before making a concluding speech. But today, as soon as the new editor-in-chief Zheng Yue finished speaking, Chairman Du Wei spoke up, and it was completely unrelated to the theme of the pre-publication meeting. Everyone knows I've recently been busy with the group's listing. I don't know how many trips I've made to Beijing in the past year. Anyway, the flight attendants on the plane all know me. The doorsteps of President Bei's company and the major government offices in Beijing are about to be worn through by me. In short, this is a major event, so major that it not only relates to the development of our group and every middle-level and senior executive present, but also relates to the great development and great prosperity of the entire cultural industry of Dongjiang Province. Therefore, the Provincial Party Committee and the provincial government attach great importance to it. They have established a leading group for the listing work of the popular art Mudia Group, headed by Vitsu Minister Lang Tao of the Provincial Party Committee's Propaganda Department. Up until now, the procedures that should have been completed have been completed, and we're just waiting for the approval of the China Securities Regulatory Commission. Public Mudia will become a new stock on the Small and Medium Enterprise Board of the Shenzhen Stock Exchange. But at this crucial juncture, a problem has occurred. What problem? Everyone present probably knows that someone posted on Tianya.com to accuse Master Wu of Yuanji Gong. Who is Master Wu? My godfather. In our group, even new employees who have just started know this. In addition, the Yuanji Culture Research Association is also a shareholder unit of our group and has extensive cooperative relations with popular art Mudia. The popular art magazine has advertisements for Yuanji Gong and Master Wu in every issue. Why did that accusation post come out at this juncture? Although the target is Master Wu, it is actually Xiang Zhuang performing the sword dance, aiming at Duku Liu. It is aimed at popular art Mudia and me, Du, and the purpose is to bring down our group. How vicious the intention is. When Du Wei said this, he picked up the teacup before him and took a sip. Everyone stared at him intently. The conference room was silent, and you could hear the gurgling sound as the tea passed through Du Wei's throat. The poster is called Under the Bodhi Tree. Of course, this is an alias. Many people have seen that post, which was a so-called letter of accusation written in the name of Zhong Tianyi. The content of the letter of accusation is utterly absurd and filthy. I won't repeat it here. Everyone knows that Zhong Tianyi was not only my fellow villager and good friend, but also my godfather's chief disciple. He made great contributions to the development of the popular art Mudia group. He passed away from cancer more than half a year ago, and my godfather and I were very sad. But this poster called Under the Bodhi Tree fabricated the so-called letter of accusation in Zhong Tianyi's name, spreading rumors and defaming my godfather. It is truly unconscionable. It is tolerable, but what is intolerable? Everyone, just think about it. If Zhong Tianyi really had an irreconcilable hatred with my godfather, as written in the letter of accusation, why didn't the two of them fall out when they were alive? Why did they have to settle the score after death? It is obviously unreasonable. The so-called letter of accusation is obviously fabricated by someone pretending to be Zhong Tianyi. Everyone may have questions. Who is this Under the Bodhi Tree? What deep hatred does he have with me and my godfather? Why is he going against our group? Not only is everyone very concerned about this issue, but the higher-level leaders also attach great importance to it. Just yesterday, Minister Lang called me to attend a special meeting. Leaders from the Provincial Party Committee Propaganda Department, the Provincial Public Security Department, the Supervision Department, and several other departments all attended. In view of the fact that the poster's behavior has constituted the crime of defamation, the Yuanji Culture Research Association and my godfather have decided to use legal means to protect their rights. The relevant departments are investigating the poster and have basically locked in the true identity of Under the Bodhi Tree. Here, I can responsibly tell everyone that Under the Bodhi Tree is not some distant sage, but an insider, right in our group. Du Wei's words were like throwing a stone into a pool. Some people whispered to each other. Some looked at each other in dismay and stunned, and expressions of surprise, doubt, and tension appeared on their faces. Du Wei seemed to see everyone's tension. The face that had been very tense relaxed a little, and he said in a comforting tone, "Everyone, don't be nervous, and don't guess wildly. The poster's true identity can only be announced after the official investigation results of the relevant departments come out. But I want to remind you that Under the Bodhi Tree does not have any illusions. The net of justice is wide, but nothing escapes. No online defamation can escape the punishment of the law. Your only way out now is to confess frankly. Considering your contributions to the group and the past friendship, I can try my best to strive for leniency for you." As Du Wei spoke, his expression became serious again. His words were already very clear. The poster Under the Bodhi Tree was in the meeting, especially the U, which was clearly said to someone in the audience. The conference room was like a pot of boiling water, and a buzzing sound of discussion rang out. It didn't stop even when the new editor-in-chief, Zheng Yue, announced the end of the meeting. Only after Du Wei left the conference room with a straight face did everyone wake up from their dreams. With complex expressions, they walked out. Wang Sheng stood up and followed the crowd leaving the meeting. As soon as he reached the door of the conference room, he was stopped by the new editor-in-chief, Zheng Yue. "Deputy Director Wang, would you please come to my office?" Yan Kui and Jiang Xin, who were walking in front, turned around at the same time, looking at Wang Sheng with puzzled faces and strange eyes. Wang Sheng turned his head and saw that although Zheng Yue's tone was gentle and polite, Her expression was very serious. Duwei's words at the meeting just now, which were suggestive and threatening, flashed through Wang Sheng's mind. He felt his heartbeat accelerate suddenly. He tried to calm himself down and nodded to Zheng Yue. "Okay, Director Zheng, I'll go back to my office first and then come." Wang Sheng returned to his office, picked up his thermos cup and wanted to take a sip of water, but the cup was empty. The water in the thermos was still what he had filled yesterday, and it was already cold. He had no choice but to pick up the thermos and go to the end of the corridor outside to fill a pot of hot water. By the time he finished drinking the water and walked out of the office, he was much calmer. Zheng Yue used Lao Uyang's office, which had been renovated and was much cleaner and brighter than before. 2 pots of fresh flowers placed by the wall near the door, which had just been watered, emitted wisps of fragrance. The desk had also been replaced with a new one, which was much larger than Lao Uyang's original desk. The desk was also tidied up in an orderly manner, showing the unique neatness of women. As soon as Zheng Yue saw Wang Sheng, she invited him to sit down and got up to make tea. But Wang Sheng stopped her, saying that he had just drunk some in the office. Zheng Yue still insisted on making a cup for Wang Sheng before returning to her desk to sit down. The two of them were facing each other across the desk. Although Wang Sheng had heard of Zheng Yue before, it was his first time coming into close contact with her. As a woman in her 50s, Zheng Yue's clothes and temperament were quite dignified. Although she was wearing makeup, it was not excessive. She had a sense of charm that lingered, making people think that she might have been a beauty when she was young. Moreover, she had no airs at all, and every frown and smile seemed kind and approachable. She wasn't like the overbearing, high-ranking official's wife that was commonly seen. "Deputy Director Wang is over 30 this year, but not married yet, right?" Zheng Yue asked with concern, as if she was going to introduce him to someone. Intellectuals are always more idealistic about love and marriage. But before Zheng Yue could finish speaking, Wang Sheng interrupted her. "Director Zheng, you don't need to beat around the bush. Please just say what you have to say." Wang Sheng's attitude obviously made Zheng Yue feel a little embarrassed. She paused and said, "Okay, let's get straight to the point. I just transferred here and am unfamiliar with the group's situation. Although I worked in the magazine before, that was 10 years ago, and things are different now. It stands to reason that I shouldn't have come forward for this matter. How should I say it? I was also ordered to do this in a time of crisis, representing the organization and Chairman Du to talk to you." "This is the opening statement, right?" Wang Sheng thought dazedly. "You heard Chairman Du's words at the meeting. The relevant departments have found out that that person is in our group. He hasn't publicly named him to save some face. After all, they're all colleagues. I think you understand what I mean by talking to you." Saying that, Zheng Yue stopped again, looking at Wang Sheng meaningfully. The time to show one's cards has come, Wang Sheng thought. So meeting Zheng Yue's gaze, he said frankly, "That's right. I posted the letter of accusation on the internet. I am under the Bodhi tree. Under the Bodhi tree is me." As if she had been waiting for Wang Sheng to say this for a long time, Zheng Yue breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay, with you being so frank, things will be easier to handle. Du told me this morning that you are that under the Bodhi tree. To be honest, I really don't want to believe it. How could it be you, Deputy Director Wang? Not only do I not believe it, but Chairman Du also doesn't want to believe it. I heard that you two are both from Chuzhou. Not only are you fellow villagers and good friends, but you're also alumni of Dongjiang University. Chairman Du said that after the relevant departments told him that the suspect who posted the post was in our group, he counted on his fingers and didn't think that it would be you. He said that you were so talented that he transferred you into the magazine from Niangzhou Normal School and entrusted you with important tasks from the beginning, from the director of the editorial department to deputy editor-in-chief and deputy editor-in-chief of the group. He has always regarded you as the most trusted person in the group. You wouldn't even if everyone in the group could post that post. Therefore, after Director Du heard from the relevant departments yesterday that you were under the Bodhi tree, he didn't sleep well for half the night. He didn't know how to talk to you about this, fearing that he wouldn't be able to control his emotions. so he had to entrust me to talk to you." Zheng Yue rambled on, saying a lot, to the point that Wang Sheng didn't know what she was trying to express. He frowned a little impatiently. Zheng Yue noticed this and changed her tone. "Okay, since things have come to this point, there's no point in saying more. The organization doesn't want to investigate why you posted that post, whether it was a moment of impulse or whether others bewitched you. Let's focus on the present and look to the future. This matter is related to the interests of the group. Director Du made it very clear at the meeting, so I won't repeat it. For the sake of the group's overall development, and for the sake of your own future, I hope you have a clear attitude and make a public clarification." Wang Sheng didn't understand what Zheng Yue meant for a moment. What attitude? How to clarify? "It is to issue a public statement admitting that you fabricated that letter of accusation and publicly apologize to Master Wu. After all, Master Wu is a well-known person in our province and even the whole country. He's getting on in years, and the content in the letter of accusation is too unbearable. I heard that Master Wu was so angry that he vomited blood and had a high blood pressure attack after the incident and was admitted to the hospital." "That's impossible. I can't do that." Wang Sheng shook his head, stood up from the sofa, and raised his voice. "I didn't fabricate the letter of accusation. Why should I apologize? I don't believe that you fabricated it either. But isn't this for the sake of the big picture? Can you bear to see such a major event as the stock listing ruined because of this matter? Aren't you afraid that hundreds of people in the group will point their fingers at you and scold you?" Zheng Yue said with a persuasive tone. "Besides, how do you know that Zhong Tianyi didn't fabricate the contents of the letter of accusation? There's no hard evidence in it." "Zhong Tianyi wouldn't lie," Wang Sheng murmured. "How could a dying man use his relatives and friends as tools to slander others for no reason?" "In this world, anything is possible. You don't believe it because you and Zhong Tianyi are friends. But don't forget that Director Du is also his friend, and Master Wu is his master. Perhaps it was precisely because he was about to die that he directed such a play, making it impossible to verify. People's hearts are unpredictable and things are unpredictable. You're too bookish and prone to impulsiveness. Impulsiveness is a demon." Wang Sheng felt that Zheng Yue's words were like hypnosis, possessing an irresistible magic. He stared warily at the other party, as if to see through her true intentions from that kind and approachable face. He increasingly felt that Zheng Yue was like an old, cunning lobbyist, dragging himself into an invisible abyss. "No, Zhong Tianyi is not that kind of person. He couldn't have done this." He struggled to shout like a drowning man. "I believe that everything written in the letter of accusation is true." "Don't be so dogmatic, and don't be in a hurry to express your position." Seeing Wang Sheng's emotional agitation, Zheng Yue said in an advisory tone, then stood up, which was a sign that the conversation was over. Wang Sheng also stood up. As he walked to the door, Zheng Yue added, "The organization cares about you, and Director Du has also made it clear to me that as long as you consider the overall situation and admit your mistake, your position and treatment in the group will not be affected in the slightest. But if you are sued in court, your future will be completely ruined, and you may even face imprisonment. I have read your file. You were admitted to Dongjiang University as a graduate student from Chuzhou Normal School. Your parents are no longer alive. It wasn't easy to get to the position of Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Popular Art Mudia Group, relying on your own efforts one step at a time. You are now standing on a cliff. Taking a step forward is an abyss, and taking a step back is a vast sky. Which is more important, what to do, you go back and think about it calmly, and then make a decision." Zheng Yue's words sounded very sincere and reasonable. For a moment, Wang Sheng couldn't find a suitable reason to refute them. 3. The target of public criticism. Wang Sheng walked mechanically out of Zheng Yue's office. It was already noon, and the employees leaving work streamed out of the office, primarily young people holding lunchboxes in their hands, going to the cafeteria for lunch. Some older, married employees gathered together and surged toward the elevator entrance. The office building was old, and the elevator was added after the three magazines were merged into the popular art media group. The space was small, and it could only accommodate about 10 people. During peak hours, the elevator was always crowded. Wang Sheng saw that the elevator entrance was crowded, so he stood in the back of the crowd in order, waiting for the next elevator. Usually, when employees saw Wang Sheng, most of them would respectfully greet him. "Hello, Deputy Director Wang." When the elevator came, they would also take the initiative to let him go first. But today, they acted contrary to their normal behavior when they saw Wang Sheng. Not only did they not greet him, but they didn't even lift their eyelids, as if they didn't see him, and strange expressions appeared on their faces. Two editors who had not been hired for long always nodded and bowed when they saw him, and their faces smiled like flowers. But at this moment, they were expressionless and shrank back, as if they didn't know Wang Sheng. When the elevator came, the people crowded at the elevator entrance rushed into the elevator without the slightest intention of showing courtesy as usual. Wang Sheng was at the very back, and there was obviously room for one or two more people inside. But just as he was about to enter, the elevator door slammed shut. Wang Sheng stuck one foot in the middle of the elevator door, and fortunately, he pulled it back in time. Otherwise, it would have been dangerous. Only Wang Sheng was left alone at the elevator entrance. He was stunned for a moment and decided not to wait for the elevator. He went down from the stairwell. Just as he turned into the stairwell, he heard the people arriving at the elevator entrance discussing softly behind him. "It's him, under the Bodhi tree." When Wang Sheng heard this, his legs became like cotton, soft and weak. He staggered and almost fell down the stairs. As soon as Wang Sheng left the office building, he saw Yan Kui and Jiang Xin walking over from the cafeteria after getting their meals. The two were very close to each other, talking in whispers as they walked. For a long time, they ignored each other when they met. Why did they suddenly become so close? Wang Sheng was secretly surprised when Yan Kui and Jiang Xin saw him. He was about to greet them, but the two turned their faces away simultaneously as if they were avoiding the plague. They turned their bodies to the side and bypassed him like loaches. Wang Sheng felt as if he had been slapped in the face, and the blood in his body surged upwards, and his face became hot. He had originally been going to the cafeteria for lunch, but now he suddenly changed his mind and went straight back to his residence. Back in the one-bedroom apartment, Wang Sheng felt as if his head was filled with lead, dizzy and heavy. He didn't want to eat lunch, so he lay down on the bed but couldn't fall asleep. He stared blankly at the ceiling, and his thoughts floated lightly like goose feathers, flying back and forth in the air. Sometimes he heard Du Wei's voice, and sometimes he heard Zheng Yue's voice, like bombs taking turns bombing his head, almost blowing his head apart. Maybe they were right. I can't be sure that the letter of accusation is true. If so, my actions have violated Master Wu's rights. This is just in terms of law. In terms of interpersonal relationships, it has also hurt Du Wei's feelings. Although this person has this or that problem, it was he who transferred me back from Niangzhou Normal School. In recent years, he has promoted me from director of the editorial department and deputy editor-in-chief of the magazine to deputy editor-in-chief of the group. It should be said that he has treated me well. I have no reason to go against him, especially since public art has grown from a struggling magazine to a cultural industry that owns 3 publications and several companies, with businesses ranging from periodical editing and publishing to tourism, culture, and real estate, and is about to be listed on the Small and Medium Enterprise Board. Du Wei has made an indispensable contribution. If I cause the listing of Popular Art Media Group to fail, I will not only be sorry for Du Wei but also harm the interests of all group employees. Thinking of this, Wang Sheng seemed to see the employees of the group hating him, pointing their fingers at him and denouncing him, and the saliva would drown him. You are now like standing on a cliff. Taking a step forward is an abyss, and taking a step back is a vast sky. Zheng Yue's voice sounded in his ears again. But what if the contents of Zhong Tianyi's letter of accusation are true? I don't have much time left. I can only send it to you, Please save it for me and say one more sentence. Good is rewarded with good, and evil is rewarded with evil. If evil deeds cannot be punished as they should be, being exposed and whipped is also good. Farewell, my friend." The words in Zhang Tianyi's letter replayed in his mind like a siren that suddenly woke him up. No, I can't betray Zhang Tianyi for Du Wei's kindness to me or my own future. Before his death, he sent the letter of accusation to me, not only out of trust in a friend, but also out of a belief in the reward of good and the retribution of evil and social justice. If Master Wu had really done those dirty and evil deeds in the letter of accusation, he would not only have been harming Zhang Tianyi alone, but would have been infringing on public order, good customs, natural law, and human relations. If I were to stand on Du Wei's side and help him wash away the sins, wouldn't that be like colluding with them and acting as an accomplice? Righteousness has different degrees of importance. Revealing and accusing based on public righteousness is for great righteousness. Hiding and protecting out of private feelings is for small righteousness. Great righteousness is awe-inspiring. Small righteousness is sentimental. The boundary between right and wrong must be clear and not confused. I must choose between the two. A serious contemplation gradually occupied Wang Sheng's heart. But how to distinguish between public righteousness and private gain? How do we distinguish the boundary between the two? Thinking like this, Wang Sheng was indecisive again. He felt that his body was being pulled, like the Viscount in the Italian writer Calvino's novel who was torn in two. Later, Wang Sheng finally fell asleep. He dreamed of his deceased father. For so many years, Wang Sheng had rarely dreamed of his father. He dreamed that his father still lived in the small house on the Jiangtan, surrounded by withered yellow reeds and poplar trees in front and behind the house. The surrounding area was a winter scene, and his father was sitting at the door, smoking and basking in the sun. The sunlight was plastered on his father like yellow mud, making him look very old. He called out, "Dad!" But his father didn't pay attention to him, as if he was asleep. But the copper pipe in his mouth was clearly smoking, which reminded him of the huge chimney in the brick factory. He called out, "Dad!" again. Only then did his father raise his head and glare at him fiercely. "You still have the face to come back and see me?" His father scolded like a machine gun, and the beard on his chin shook like a cluster of messy thatch. He didn't know what he had done wrong to make his father angry, and he panicked. When he was a child, every time he did something wrong, his father would blow his beard and stare, and sometimes even beat him. Whenever this happened, his mother would pull him behind her, and his father would beat her herself. "Are you still my Wang Shengli's son? Are you worthy of the name I gave you? Are you worthy of being called Wang Cheng? I, Wang Shengli, have been a hero all my life. How could I give birth to a wimp like you?" His father continued to scold, and his voice became louder, and saliva flew, splashing onto Wang Sheng's face like raindrops. "My name is not Wang Cheng. My name is Wang Sheng," he stammered. But before he could finish speaking, his father took the copper pipe from his mouth with his only remaining hand and hit him on the head. He subconsciously used his hands to protect his head and at the same time shouted in panic. Wang Sheng woke up. It wasn't dawn yet. Through the window it was dark outside like a bottomless abyss. He felt sweaty all over. Thinking of the scene in the dream, he was still a little confused. He hugged the quilt and sat on the bed until dawn. Only then did he remember that he had not eaten lunch and dinner. He felt weak all over and hungry, so he climbed out of bed and went to the kitchen to make a large bowl of noodles. Only after eating did he feel a little stronger. Just then, Wang Sheng's phone rang. It was a Nokia phone he had just bought recently, and few people knew about it. He looked at the phone number, feeling very strange, and didn't want to answer it, so he pressed the reject button. But in less than 2 minutes, the phone rang again. The phone's ringtone sounded very sharp in the quiet room, like a warning, making Wang Sheng, who had just woken up from his dream, feel startled. Wang Sheng pressed the answer button, and an urgent voice came from the phone. "Is this Wang Sheng?" It sounded very strange. Who is this? I'm Cheng Guojun. Cheng Guojun. Wang Sheng searched his mind and remembered the person he had seen at Uncle Luo Zheng's bookstore. It's you. I called your office, and no one answered. I had to ask the front desk to get this number. The other party sounded like he had run a long way and said breathlessly, I finally found you. Wang Sheng heard that Cheng Guojun's voice was full of anxiety, and his heart couldn't help but skip a beat. What? What's wrong? Lao Luo is injured and staying at the People's Hospital, Cheng Guojun said in a heavy tone. He wants to see you. Can you come over? Uncle Luo Zheng is injured. This news was so sudden. He hadn't been to the People's Bookstore or contacted Luo Zheng for a long time. He didn't have time to ask what had happened and quickly said, Okay, I'll come right away. After hanging up the phone, Wang Sheng hurriedly left his residence, stopped a taxi at the roadside, and went straight to the People's Hospital. 4. Choice. As Wang Sheng walked into the ward, he saw Uncle Luo Zheng lying asleep on the bed, his head wrapped in bandages. A few strands of white hair protruded from the bandages like a pile of messy thatch. His entire face was so thin that it had changed shape, looking somewhat unfamiliar. His tall body was shrunk inside the quilt, looking very thin and small. What happened? Wang Sheng asked Cheng Guojun, who was guarding the bedside, in a low voice. It's hard to explain in a sentence or two. Cheng Guojun glanced at the sleeping Luo Zheng and the other patients in the ward and said in the same low voice, Lao Luo didn't fall asleep until the second half of last night. Don't wake him up. Let's go outside and talk. After saying that, he tiptoed out. Wang Sheng hesitated for a moment and followed him out of the ward. The two came to the corridor outside the ward and found a secluded place. Cheng Guojun then told Wang Sheng the whole story. About half a month ago, a few people came to Phoenix Island. They were here to petition again. As before, they went to the letters and visits office during the day to petition and stayed at the bookstore at night. The attic was originally where Lao Luo worked, rested, and met guests, but now it has been vacated for that group of people to live in. Those who couldn't fit in slept on the floor downstairs. Unlike the previous few times, they brought luggage, firewood, rice, oil, and salt for cooking, seemingly preparing to fight a protracted war. The leader was an elderly man, and they all called him Old Principal. The Old Principal and Lao Luo were very familiar, and called him Teacher Luo. As soon as they arrived, Lao Luo called me to the bookstore to help, and he stayed in the attic with those people, sometimes acting mysteriously for most of the day. Later, I learned that because the previous petitions had yielded no results, the local public security department reprimanded several people who took the lead in petitioning. Once, I went to the attic to deliver boiling water. Just as I walked to the door with the thermos, I heard the old principal say, Nie Changhai is now wearing the same pants as Master Wu. Not only has he sold Phoenix Island, but he also plans to move the Martyrs Cemetery off of Phoenix Island. Lao Luo asked, Where to move it to? The old principal said, Jianjiao Island, the small island where Tianfang was teaching before she drowned. Before he could finish speaking, Lao Luo slapped the table. That's outrageous! Doesn't this make them the returning home corps? His voice sounded a little shaky. The old principal asked, Teacher Luo, what do you say we should do? Lao Luo paused for a moment and said, The world is still the Communist party's, so we must fight resolutely. Someone asked in a low voice. How fight? Lao Luo answered decisively, There's no point in petitioning at the letters and visits office again. Let's just sit in silence in front of the provincial government. Lao Luo's words surprised the people in the attic and me. The thermos in my hand almost fell to the ground. I thought to myself, this old petitioner is really daring to come up with ideas. During the Cultural Revolution, he led people to sit in silence in front of the Provincial Party Committee auditorium. The next day, the old principal really led a few people to the provincial government. The result was predictable. They were dispersed by the police shortly after gathering in front of the provincial government. This happened for several days in a row. 2 people were also injured during the dispersal process. Seeing the old principal and the others looking dejected when they returned to the bookstore from outside, I felt both worried for them and for Lao Luo. If the old principal's actions violated the law, wouldn't Lao Luo become an accessory and an instigator? He's a person with a criminal record. Before long, my worries really came true. Cheng Guojun sighed as he said this. On the night of the 25th, I was inventorying the day's income in the bookstore, preparing to close. After returning from outside at noon, the old principal and the others stayed in the attic all afternoon without going out. Lao Luo was with them too, as if they were discussing something. Around 7 or 8 o'clock, a few people suddenly broke in from outside. I thought they were here to buy books, so I quickly stepped forward to stop them. Everyone, the bookstore is taking inventory. If you want to buy books, come back tomorrow. But before I could finish speaking, I was pushed away. The leader was burly and rough, with a pockmarked face, skin as black as charcoal, and dressed in black. The people behind him were also dressed in black. That person stood with his hands on his hips and questioned me fiercely. Where's the old principal? Is he staying here? Seeing that he wasn't someone to be trifled with, I couldn't help but feel a little scared. What do you want to do? That person glared at me and said, What do I want to do? He took the lead in illegally petitioning, and I'm here on orders to arrest people. As he spoke, he led the people toward the attic. Just as he climbed to the middle of the stairs, the small door in the attic opened, and the old principal appeared at the stairwell and asked sharply, Hey, San, are you here on the orders of Nia Changhai or on the orders of Master Wu to arrest us? Hey San was stunned when he heard this and seemed to shrink his neck a little guiltily. What if it's on the orders of Branch Secretary Ni? What if it's on the orders of Master Wu? The old principal said, I'm a party member. Nia Changhai is the branch secretary. According to organizational principles, I can go back with you if it's on his orders. If it's on the orders of Master Wu, I'm sorry. I'm not a student of his rubbish Yuanji Gong Research Association. I'm afraid I can't obey. He San sneered and said, I'm not only the security minister of Wugong Shrine, but also the militia company commander of Phoenix Island. If you dare to attack Yuanji Gong, I dare to arrest you. As he spoke, he rolled up his sleeves and was about to rush to the attic. Just then, I saw Lao Luo come out of the attic and shout loudly, Where did this little thief come from, daring to run wild in my bookstore? He San took a half-step back, pointed at Lao Luo with his finger and said, I recognize you. You're that old soldier who goes to the Phoenix Island cemetery to burn incense every year. I've long heard that the old principal has a backer in the provincial capital, and you're that backer. Lao Luo said, That's right, I'm that backer. Do you want to arrest me too? He San glanced back at the people behind him, mustered up his courage, and said threateningly, Don't think that just because you're an old soldier, no one dares to touch you. Don't think I don't know that you've been in jail before. If you hinder us from performing our duties, we'll arrest you too. As he spoke, he waved to the people behind him and continued to rush towards the attic. Lao Luo stepped forward, pulled the old principal behind him, and blocked the stairwell himself. He grabbed the handrails of the stairs with both hands, blocking He San's path like a door panel. Lao Luo's body looked very tall and mighty, unlike that of an old man in his 70s, reminding me of Huang Jiguang in the movie, who sacrificed himself to block the enemy's gun. He San was obviously shocked by Lao Luo's awe-inspiring righteousness and stopped on the stairs, but after a moment he rushed up again. What happened next? Wang Sheng's heart beat in his throat. Later, Cheng Guojun lowered his head and said, He San rushed in front of Lao Luo, wanting to push him away to arrest the old principal, but Lao Luo grabbed the stair railing tightly, and his body was as motionless as if it had been riveted in place. He San was like a wolf whose eyes had turned red in desperation. He grabbed Lao Luo's chest and pulled him down. Lao Luo, old after all, couldn't resist the strong and powerful He San and rolled down the stairs. I exclaimed and rushed towards Lao Luo. I saw a hole in his head, blood gushing out, and he was already unconscious. He San took away the old principal and the others in the chaos. I took Lao Luo to the hospital. The doctor rescued him for a day and a night before pulling him back from the brink of death. After Lao Luo woke up, the first thing he asked was how the old principal was doing. When he heard that he had been captured back to Phoenix Island by He San, he closed his eyes again, and a painful expression appeared on his face. For several days in a row, I have been guarding Lao Luo. Seeing his head wrapped in bandages, I remembered when I had just entered prison and was beaten to a bloody pulp in the middle of the night by the inmates, instructed by the prison boss. Thanks to Lao Luo's rescue, he begged the duty officer to send me to the hospital in time. Otherwise, my life would have been gone. Lao Luo is my lifesaver. Wang Sheng saw that Cheng Guojun, who was usually cynical, had red eyes, and tears were about to flow out. He felt a burst of sadness in his heart and said, "Luo Zheng is my father's comrade in arms. With such a big thing happening, why didn't you call me over sooner? I thought about it too, but Lao Luo didn't let me, saying not to affect your work." Cheng Guojun glanced at Wang Sheng and said. Wang Sheng listened, hesitated for a moment, and then told him about how he posted the letter of accusation against Master Wu for Zhong Tianyi. "I saw that on the internet a few days ago. I didn't expect it to be you who posted it." Cheng Guojun said, somewhat surprised, and looked at his watch. "Lao Luo should be awake. Let's go back." Saying that, he walked towards the ward. Wang Sheng went to the bathroom, and when he walked into the ward, he saw that Luo Zheng was indeed awake. As soon as he saw Wang Sheng, a light flashed in his eyes, and he trembled as he tried to sit up from the bed. Wang Sheng hurriedly walked over to help him, called out, "Uncle Luo," and choked with sobs. The two hands were tightly clasped together. Wang Sheng felt that although Luo Zheng's hand was a little weak, it was holding him tightly, unwilling to let go. "Guojun told me about you. Good boy, well done, like Wang Shengli's son." Perhaps due to the brain injury, Luo Zheng's words were unclear. He stammered, almost saying each word individually like nails hammered into a wooden board, forceful and resounding. Wang Sheng's originally uneasy heart, like a kite fluttering in the air, fell to the ground, and he suddenly felt a sense of security. But he originally wanted to express the confusion, doubts, struggles, and contradictions in his heart. Still, those hands that Luo Zheng held tightly seemed to transmit an invisible force into his body, making him feel as if he had finally found his way home after getting lost as a child, and his heart became firm. Luo Zheng probably saw that Wang Sheng's mood was a little low and said in an encouraging tone, "Don't be afraid. We must continue to fight resolutely." Then he seemed to remember something and asked, "Are you a Communist Party member?" "I am a probationary party member." Wang Sheng hesitated, answering a little embarrassed. "It's just, I'm afraid I won't be able to become a full member." "It doesn't matter if you can't become a full member. I, an old party member who joined the party in 1942, was even expelled from the party." Luo Zheng smiled self-deprecatingly, and his expression became serious. "A true Communist Party member, it doesn't matter whether you join the party organizationally. The key is whether you join the party ideologically." "So, what I'm doing is right?" Wang Sheng finally spoke the question in his heart. "I believe you're right, just like I believe in your father, Wang Shengli, and that old principal Yu Jifang," Luo Zheng said decisively. Although Wang Sheng didn't understand the relationship between them, he felt that there was a trust in Luo Zheng's voice that was only between relatives. He really wanted to bury his face in Uncle Luo Zheng's arms and cry, but he ultimately controlled his emotions. Wang Shengli was a true revolutionary. He has been gone for so many years, and I have never missed him as much as I do today, my good comrade in arms. Luo Zheng looked at Wang Sheng with kindness and murmured, "Child, when I see you, I feel like I'm seeing your father. Remember, you are the descendant of a revolutionary, and you must never surrender to the forces of darkness." Luo Zheng's body was still very weak. After saying these words, he breathed laboriously. The hand that was holding Wang Sheng's gradually lost its strength and drooped down, as if a part of his own body had fallen off. Wang Sheng couldn't help but think of the scene of his father's death, and suddenly felt a burst of sadness in his heart. Perhaps it was because Luo Zheng's gaze contained too much expectation that Wang Sheng found it difficult to bear, and he lowered his head involuntarily. For a period of time after that, he silently looked at Liu Jiming, his heart filled with sadness. When he left the hospital, it was as if he had undergone a baptism and had changed from the inside out, becoming a person like his father. He had looked down on his father so much in the past, wishing he could stay far away from him and even wanting to sever all ties with him and devote himself to a new world. Now he felt that he had broken entirely with that new world, and all of this happened because he posted Zhang Tianyi's letter of accusation on the internet. It was that simple. He knew what to do next. 5. Subpoena. When Wang Sheng walked into his residence in the Literary and Art Federation compound, it was already afternoon. The light bulb was broken and the corridor was dimly lit. He took out his key and was about to open the door when someone suddenly emerged from the shadows by the stairwell, startling him. "Uncle, you're back!" Only when he heard this unfamiliar yet familiar voice did he recover. He peered and saw a girl of 17 or 18 standing before him, dressed neatly and plainly, with a red scarf around her neck and a batik cloth satchel slung over her shoulder. Those bright, shining eyes and oval-shaped face resembled someone so much. "It's you, Tian Qingqing. When did you arrive?" "I've been here for a while. I knocked, but no one answered, so I knew you had gone out to do something." "You've been waiting here all this time?" Wang Sheng asked, looking at Tian Qingqing's thin woolen coat. Opening the door, he said, "You must be freezing. Come in quickly." Tian Qingqing stamped her feet as she entered the door, seemingly to shake off the dust on the soles of her shoes, or perhaps because her feet had gone numb from waiting outside for too long. Wang Sheng looked at that face that resembled Tian Fang so much, and a feeling of kinship arose in his heart. Half a year ago, Tian Qingqing had been admitted to Dongjiang University from Nyangzihu No. 1 High School. Hearing this news, Wang Sheng had been happy for several days. On the day of freshman registration, he went to the Dongda admissions office and paid Tian Qingqing's tuition on her behalf. When the staff at the admissions office issued the receipt, they asked Wang Sheng what his relationship was with Tian Qingqing. He scratched his head, unable to answer for a moment. After stammering for a while, he said, "I'm her uncle. She's my niece." The staff stared at him for a few moments, and that suspicious gaze made him feel a little guilty, as if he had done something improper. One weekend, not long after the start of the school year, Tian Qingqing came to visit. As soon as she saw Wang Sheng, she asked, "Uncle, was it you who paid my tuition?" Wang Sheng nodded. The old principal had already prepared my tuition. As Tian Qingqing spoke, she took out a stack of bills, intending to return them to Wang Sheng, but he stopped her. "Keep this money for yourself. You'll need money for food, clothes, and books at school. You'll have many opportunities to spend money in the future." Tian Qingqing asked, childishly, "Uncle, why did you pay my tuition?" "For no reason," Wang Sheng said, lowering his eyelids and mumbling, "I swore at your aunt's grave that I would take good care of you." Hearing his words, Tian Qingqing's eyes immediately turned red. From then on, whenever there was a holiday, if Tian Qingqing didn't return to Phoenix Island, she would come to see Wang Sheng. The little girl was clever and hardworking. As soon as she arrived, she would help Wang Sheng clean up, tidying up his usually messy residence in an orderly manner. If he had time, Wang Sheng would also go to Dongda to see Tian Qingqing, taking her to eat a meal at a small restaurant on campus. The two of them were as close as family. At this moment, Wang Sheng looked at Tian Qingqing, remembering that she hadn't come for a long time, and asked her how her studies were going recently. Who knew that Tian Qingqing would change the subject? "Uncle, I saw the rumors on the internet. Was it really you who posted that letter of accusation on the internet?" "You know about it too?" Wang Sheng was slightly surprised, but then he nodded frankly and said, "Yes." Tian Qingqing then asked, "Some people on the internet say you're spreading rumors and defaming people. Is that true?" Seeing Tian Qingqing's apprehensive expression, Wang Sheng asked in return, "Do you believe what they say?" "No, I don't believe it. Tian Qingqing shook her head and said, "I believe in you." As if he was intentionally trying to test Tian Qingqing, Wang Sheng continued to ask, "Why?" "Because you're a good person." Hearing Tian Qingqing's childish answer, Wang Sheng couldn't help but laugh. He didn't say anything else. Recalling the words he had heard from Uncle Luo Zheng at the hospital in the morning, he thought to himself, "Don't I also seem like a child in front of Uncle Luo Zheng?" He originally wanted to say that there aren't only good people and bad people in the world, and that the so-called good people and bad people are also relative because understanding good and bad is different depending on the standpoint. But this involved philosophy and even more complex issues, so he had to give up. At this time, Wang Sheng saw that it was time for dinner, so he went to the cafeteria to get food. There weren't many people in the cafeteria at night. It was too cold, so he got 2 portions of food and returned to his residence. The food had already gotten cold. Tian Qingqing was quick and went to the kitchen to heat the food and made a pot of steaming egg drop soup. After eating, Tian Qingqing went back to school. Wang Sheng took her to the bus stop closest to the Literary and Art Federation compound and watched her get on the bus before walking back. The wind was very strong, making it difficult for him to move forward. He had no choice but to turn up his collar and walk forward sideways. Just as he reached the entrance of the Literary and Art Federation compound, Lao Jiang, the gatekeeper, stopped him. "Your express delivery. Sign for it." Wang Sheng was a little puzzled. In the past, his letters and express deliveries were sent to Lao Lu at the express delivery office of the group's office building. Why was it sent to the Literary and Art Federation's express delivery office today? As he muttered to himself, he walked into the express delivery office, signed his name on the receipt, and took an express delivery envelope from Lao Jiang. The other party looked at him with a strange expression. Wang Sheng rarely went to the Literary and Art Federation express delivery office to pick up mail and wasn't familiar with Lao Jiang. Seeing him look at himself with this kind of expression was rare, and his heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Wang Sheng returned to his residence, tore open the envelope, and saw that it was a summons from the court. The cause of action column stated defamation, and the summons reason stated court hearing. This was the first time Wang Sheng had seen a court summons. He felt surprised and novel, staring at the words Wang Sheng in the defendant column of the summons, lost in thought for a long time. The court hearing was still more than half a month away. As the defendant, what should I do? Like a student who hadn't prepared his lessons well, he was a little at a loss in the face of a sudden exam. The next morning, Wang Sheng received a call from Gu Zheng.